thirikari kihoyo kuhanyuka guthaitira aria ahatiririku mwandiki twa mohoro gwitwo Martin munene ria cerete muno cio wa Sorio na akahariria riboti ino
kuria guothe warora migunda o niguo maundu mahuana mimera imwe ni miumu na kungi irorete o kuma aikari guku marauga miturire yao ikoretwo iri miritu makiria gitango kia wagi wa mbura kirahuha Meruri Sorio na ona demu nini iria cienjetwo ni thirikari niguo kunina thina wa mai ni cianiarire
guku life ni nditu muno ona ugakoraga riu ona nginya ni urari bata wa gukorwo na uikaro na ndure gia kuria ni uriku tondu tuturaga nigetha turie na tutire gia kuria migunda ni yomire
kinju guku gutiriga mbura kwa ihinda iraihu ni tondu nituikarite tukahanda imera ta 4 na utie kindu turona eke tuikarite na mathina macio na nginyo hiyo ndukina kindu raria na tukiari uguo ri ona nyimbi migunda ni murona
andu akuru na aria mari na mawathe mari hatikaini nene amwe matire na uhoti wa kumagara kwimathira
iria gutari tondu nathi kugura nduka-ini ri kanuthu ri etuge ni ta ngirathi imwe ri urenderio ciringi 35 nuthu ri kenderio kiria 70 nona mundu atai na ringi mundu handu arathi kibaro ndungiciona o icirutako aguo murimu naguo ni ingirire na njira yaguo
andu ethi nao makauga wagi wa ifaro wa migunda-ini ni urarituhia miturire yao makiria
ringana ucumi uria uri iguru ri tutirahota kuona ki ya kuria aciari itu taguo migunda ndirauma kindu gutina mbura riu tukona tuhinyiririo kuhinyiririo mutu tha ici nduragurika tha ici nyuma gwetha gifaro ni njagire
urakora o mareka campaign ukarigwo ugwikirwo campaign no mundu muhotu kula ya mundu muhotu thi nduramibatara iungiuka ikithurano kingikinya to muthi ukore mundu ucio ni akuire wateithika naki
o niguo migunda ya muikari wa Sorio ihuana na koguo guoya wa ngaragu ya muikari wa guku Sorio toya umuthi tu ni nginya ya rucio kuona gutire kindu maratanya gwakorwo makigetha kuma migunda-ini ino yao
miaka 3 hakuhina mbura tungiuga ati twarite irio wega riu tuhandaga ikiumaga tugaikara na thina muingi muno tondu mundu kwanja utari handu angirutira kindu ri ta ithuĩ taugora nyona ni thiaga na miti ndire kwa mundu ingithie wira ndiro ndu ingihota gwika riu thina ucio ni muingi muno tondu mbeca ni thina hari ni muno
utongoria wa matura maya urenda thirikari ihenyukie gutangikira thina uyu kuona haria ukinyite ni uregete mitheko
yenje ithima o kilomita 3 hagakorwo na mbua huru o kilomita 3 hagakorwo na mbua huru nigetha mundu wothe akorwo na mai ma kurima tondu andu aria mari guku ni andu mendete kuruta wira no riu ni maunitwo moko ni riua
kundu ku ni tuhutie muno no thirikari iturehere irio
icagi cia Sorio ire na makiria ma family 3,000
thirikari ike undu umwe ni itige kuona o ta iziuru na naguku wanjia kuhutitwo irio ikahitukagera hara ikahitukira barabara tukonago marori magithie na gutire irio iria ingira guku
handu-ini ha Inooro TV de Sorio county-ini ya Laikipia jitagwo Martin munene
niwega muno mundu gwitwo Martin munene ni undu wa riboti iyo yaku bunge ya keria county ya Kiambu iratanywo gutiriho muthenya wa umuthi na uguo ni kuga ma MCA riu ni mekuingira matura-ini gucaria hinya kuri muingi wa guthurwo rita ringi muingi matura-ini nao makemaikia kabiru kumathurima na kuigirira tiri maira maria makoretwo makiruta itini-ini riao ria miaka 5
MCA 90 aria ni 60 aguthurwo kuma ward ciothe cia county ya Kiambu na 30 aria ni aguthukio ni matirihite itina riao ria guthondeka mawatho kunyabara uruti wira wa thirikari ya county na kurugamirira muingi wa Kiambu
na representation ni to prosecute muno petition nyingi cia wananchi na tarukura dedro kuri kundu farai ya hamito ika encroacho na tuhotire ku prosecute motion ucio wa the petition tugeka petition yo tugekenge ikonainie na kundu kwaria yitwo kundu gitagwa Tumumu na tukamicokeria muingi uhoro wa question time kana request for statement tukite statements nyingi muno na tukahota guthurima uria na thirikari nene ira interact na thirikari ya guku.
Kuringana na speaker wa bunge ino Stephen Ndicho, bunge ino yakorwo ihitukitie mawatho 32 igakorwo ineanite mendekithia ma muingi 470 na ciuria iria marokorete moritie na gucokerio kuma kuri thirikari nene ya county ni 170 undu uria mareganira.
Mwana twakire 2017 mawatho maria tuhitukitie ni 32 maria marehetwo ni thirikari ya county na mangi makarehwo ni members o wenyewe.
Muingi uria wathurire ajumbe aya riu ukimaiga kabiro-ini hari uria mamarugamirire bunge-ini ino.
Bunge ya Kiambu ni kinyaniirie mawira maria tumihete ona gutuika thina wokire hindi ya covid na no marutite wira.
Ngarigwo wira wake ni uriku na tukerira muno tondu ndangituteithia kuoneka gwake ni hinya miaka 5 kumuona uguo ekiria ngari yake tinti ndungimuona no ngari yake niona ukituka ndo mutingihota kwaraniria nake ona aigue mathina maku.
Hamwe na mawatho maria mahitukitio bunge-ini ino ni hamwe na wa kuhe andu a ruriri rwa Shona ibande, watho wa kuramata wendia na unyui wa njohi na watho wa guthaitira na kuramata mathibitari na ungania wa igoti.
Andu aria maikaraga guku Kiambu na matiari na uraia ni undu wonekaga wi hinya muno kuhinga, no ni twahitukirie thiini wa bunge no na thutha ucio ugithie Senate ukihituka motion no ucio ugithie National Assembly ukihituka na nie ni da sponsor motion no ucio na finally president akihingia kiriro kia andu acio.
Turadirikanite ati ni twahota kuruta wira twi micii tondu ya covid yarugamire yokire twarugamia guka guku no twahutagira wira micii na hati undu wahitana.
Honorable Omondi na tugitigwo ni Honorable Thithia uhoro ucio ni twaiguire watukua muno na kuria tungi wathire
ona turi andu independent tutingihota ko oversight guoko kuria guturiha misara guoko kuria guturihagira thitima guturiha internet guturiha public participation situ ko ntwagiro ko na independent account itu CRF ni kuria consolidated revenue fund
uothe Kenya ngima utire speaker na governor mendugu na ciumaranagia na riri urarega gutunengera mbeca citu ciothe twike wira twagini kuruta niki ro ni project watigeta rendeku na nitungirarikirie.
Itena ria bunge ya keri ya kaunti ino riu ni riinikirira na riu mubira ucoketio kuri muingi niguo gukorwo ukinyabara kana ni matunga mawatho ta uria merigiriirwo kunyabara mbeca kana kigina gia kaunti ora undu umwe na kana ni mamarugamirira miaka 5 iria makorwo thiini wa nyumba ino. Handu-ini ha Inooro TV kuma bunge-ini ya kaunti ya Kiambu, njitagwo Charles Gikunga wa Kariuki.
Wega muno Charles Gikunga wa Kariuki ni undu wa riboti iyo yaku. Riboti yaku ni yatutirira mohoro maitu na njira nguhi ma ithaa riria thaa 3. Mohoro mangi riu na njira nguhi to thaa 5 ni mariukaga oria matukinyira kuma kuria matura-ini tondu riu ngirora Kimuri ni iria tuga Kimuri reloaded. Koguo kahinda gatari kuraya ni gukorwo kinyitana na timu ino ya Kimuri aria me ku thiini wa studio ni mundu gwitwo Ken wa kuraya na mundu gwitwo Jabi wa Njau ondu umwe mena ageni Paul Waiganjo kana Waiganjo Paul ondu umwe na mundu gwitwo Efa Maina makererio horo wa itemiria aini thiini wa uteti. Nina Daimeria ni tuonana muthenya wa rucio tafarira ya Inooro rucini tidia wega.
The dawn of filmmaking in Kenya is here.
What was that? It was a voice.
School Flicks, in association with the Ministry of Education, presents the Kenya Schools and Colleges Film Festival 2022. Be part of the 6-day event that will witness the screening of over 350 films produced by Kenya's youngest talents from schools around Kenya. Join the screenings at the Tafaria Castle Center for the Arts. To be part of this event, register on View Tickets. Dial *487 *7#. The Kenya Schools and Colleges Film Festival 2022 from 27th June to 2nd July 2022.
Mwasieko agedi aya twathieka Gudo Road gwa Top Gear gotinagia ona niĩ nĩ kuondorete nĩ tũthiĩ. Oh yes, ũyũ nĩguo mũgũnda wa Top Care gũkũ Kangundo Road. Ndagĩka 10 tu kuma haha Joska. Barabara cia thĩinĩ tũgatema wega, kwĩna maĩ na thitima na nĩ kũirige. Naguo thogora rĩ, reke nyamũ kau we kũnyitanĩte we ngoja. Nĩ gũtinangia tondũ tũtinangĩtie nginyagia 595,000 only.
Tũcerera Roiro Town, Greek Towers, kana ũtũhũrĩra thimũ namba nĩyo 0708 000 999.
Top Care nĩ mũciĩ waku mwĩhokeku wa ũigithia.
Gũkũ kwa Alpha Mabati, we customer witũ we wa bata mũno, na nĩkĩo tũgũthondekagĩra mabati makũgita nyũmba yaku ma gĩkĩro kĩa igũrũ. Endia aitũ nĩ mohĩgĩrĩire wĩra-inĩ wao na makwendagĩria kĩrĩa kĩagĩrĩire nĩ ũndũ wa kĩrĩa ũrenda kũgita kũringana na mĩthemba itũ ngũrani ya mabati ĩrĩa tũkoragwo nayo. Wĩcagũrĩre kuma mĩthemba ya marangi matiganĩte na mũigana wa ibati rĩrĩa ũrenda nĩguo ũhonokie mbeca ũkĩgita. Nĩ tũĩ atĩ mahinda nĩ mbeca, na nĩkĩo tũgũkinyagĩria kĩrĩa ũrenda oro harĩa ũrĩ guothe bũrũri-inĩ tegũkũrĩhia na mathaa 72. Tũkoragwo Ruiru Northern Bypass hakuhĩ na KU Referral Hospital. Alpha Mabati, the roofing industry, bell ringers.
We all start differently, but we can all start with the strongest protection. Because some start early, others start late. Some from little homes, others from big ones. Some start together, or all on their own.
It doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start strong. With new Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection. Now with fluoride plus arginine for 4 times more strengthening power. So that you can give them the strongest start to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay strong.
Mugithi wa Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance ni ugashera Kirinyaga na Nyeri County muthenya wa Jumatano tariki 29 mweri uyu mwaka uyu. Ukagerera matura-ini ma Sagana, Kagio, Varisho, Karatina, Mukurwe-ini, Gakindu, Uthaya, Giakaja, Nyeri, Muiga, na Rumoro, Shaka na Karatina. Ni ugashajamurwo ni aini guthi ta Samido, Joyce wa Mama, Josega Tutura, Ben Githai, Sir James na age aige o hamwe na memerekia a Inooro FM wendete. Uka uthikiriria atongoria a Azimio la Umoja magikwira mubango uria mari naguo iguru riaku.
We all start differently, but we can all start with the strongest protection. Because some start early, others start late. Some from little homes, others from big ones. Some start together, or all on their own.
It doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start strong. With new Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection. Now with fluoride plus arginine for 4 times more strengthening power. So that you can give them the strongest start to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay strong.
Introducing a new way to earn cash every time you buy airtime. Simply dial *487*2#. Buy airtime, pay for electricity or water bills for you or someone else, and get paid papo hapo. Usinunue airtime na tokens bure tu. Earn instantly with *487*2#. Dial *487*2# now.
ciuhĩrĩirwo nĩ kĩũndũ na gũtirĩ ũrĩ wakwa mathibitarĩ ndagĩtarĩ ndoĩ na wengi ya wendo tucemanagia ngariri matagĩtono ona ndaitarĩ ithori tokona nĩ kĩũgũ kĩrĩrĩmbĩ gĩkĩ kĩa wendo gwĩkateana nĩguo gĩakĩrĩirie wewe ihĩndĩ rĩa maĩndĩ makwa wĩ mwĩrĩ kĩenyũkia mwĩrĩ ũyũ wakwa ndigũkũitha reke rĩu nyumũre nĩguo ndikae gũte kĩoneki kairĩtu gaka kamũbaranja kuonaga gwakwa wĩ ũtũrĩte cuka kanitha-inĩ o kiumia mami anjĩraga indo njega ciumaga Jesũ ũngĩhingwo maitho niĩ ndihingaga ũrotaga ngera Ngai ndathimĩraga nĩwĩrĩgĩte ũngeithia ngeithi tũkutenderesa nja wa kanitha nakwĩmbĩirie ngĩrega nawe ngĩkemia maitho rĩa cirika makĩgega kĩa wendo gwĩkateana nĩguo wakĩrĩire wewe ihĩndĩ rĩa maĩndĩ makwa wĩ mwĩrĩ kĩenyũkia mwĩrĩ ũyũ wakwa ndigũkũitha reke ũnyumbũre nĩguo ndikae gũte kĩoneki kairĩtu gaka kamũbaranja kuonaga gwakwa wĩ ũtũrĩte cuka
getagwo kirĩrĩmbĩ kĩa wendo no tabarĩra nĩ kĩmũrĩ ino nĩ ceceni ya Inooro TV tũgakũnyita ũgeni mũno makĩria mũthenya wa ũmũthĩ tũkĩnyita hatamu ya uongozi wa kĩmũrĩ kĩrĩa gĩkoragwo kaingĩ na kaingĩ na Michael Njegara mũndũ gwĩtwo Waihũra koguo tũgũkorwo twĩna Njambi wa Njaũ na reke Njambi nayo gĩtwarĩrie
kwĩhoka mũrega mũno mũthenya wa rũcinĩ wa ũmũthĩ tũgakena mũno nĩ gũkorwo tũgĩtereba kĩmũrĩ kĩa ũmũthĩ rũmbo rũretwo kĩrĩrĩmbĩ kĩa wendo na wendo rĩmwe nĩ ũkoragwo wĩna maũndũ maingĩ mũno Ken
na nĩma wendo nĩ ũndũ wa cama mũno makĩria ndona na rwĩmbo rũu rũinĩtwo nĩ mũndũ gwĩtwo Eba Maina na nĩ nguonaga Waiganjo akĩgeria gwĩciria rwĩmbo rũu no rwa kanitha kana ndona arikĩra
nĩ arikĩra kaũndũ keho na nĩ ararigwo atĩrĩrĩ hihi no ngũinaĩ kana ndĩtue ndiraiguaĩ na tũgakena mũno nĩ ũndũ wa ũhoro ũcio nĩ ngetwo Njambi wa Njaũ
nĩngetwo Ken wa kũraya kwa ihinda rĩrĩ tũkorwo tũkĩmenya ageni aitũ ke twanjĩrĩrie na mũndũ gwĩtwo Waiganjo.
Thank you Ken na mũndũ gwĩtwo Njambi na nĩ ngwĩkena nĩ tondũ wa gũka gũkũ Inooro na Inooro nĩ mũciĩ na ngoretwo gũkũ no ndirakorwo tabarĩra-inĩ ĩno ya kĩmũrĩ rĩu ndarora tha ngona nĩ thaa 4 iragĩthiĩ ona anga nĩ nginyu nĩ kinyire
ci hakuhĩ
nĩ cirorete ngakĩona ndikoretwo kuo lakini ngĩrĩ mwega na ngakena kũnyitwo ũgeni gũkũ Inooro.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Mũndũ gwĩtwo Eba Maina twĩtambũrũkie.
Eba Maina nĩ mũini wa mbere nĩ ngatho nĩ gũkorwo na niĩ gũkũ. Eba Maina nĩ mũini, Eba Maina nĩwe chairman wa Tamko Sacco ĩrĩa ya aini othe a bũrũri ũyũ na ndĩkĩrĩ mũciari mũthuri wa twana twĩrĩ.
Ngwenda hihi mũthenya wa mũthĩ direct itũ nĩ ya itemi rĩa mũini thĩinĩ wa wĩini no tũtanaingĩra hau nĩ wega twambe tũmũmenye na njĩra ndikandĩkĩru hihi mũndũ anjĩrĩirie kĩheo gĩake kĩa wĩini hihi tũkĩanjĩrĩria nawe Waiganjo nĩgetha mũndũ hihi ũtarĩ wa kuona kana ũtakũĩ ona wakorwo nĩ njũĩ ti andũ aingĩ matagĩkũĩ tũtambũrũkĩrie hihi wĩũ na wĩinĩte rwĩmbo rũrĩkũ.
Thank you mwĩroreri njĩtagwo Paul Waiganjo na ndagĩciarirwo kũrĩa Nyandarua County ndiaga kũgwetwo ũguo tondũ kũu nĩ mũciĩ na kĩheo kĩa wĩini gĩtuĩkaga mũndũ wa mũgima ukona mundu arathundura kĩheo gĩa gũcora kana maũndũ marĩa mangĩ na indo make mathiangu ngwenda kuga ndambĩrĩirie kũina ndĩ mwana mũnini kuma kanitha-inĩ Sunday school ũguo nginya ngiũkĩte ngĩkĩgimara no ũhoro wa production ya nyĩmbo ciakwa kana ũhoro wa kũruta rwĩmbo rwetanio na niĩ ndainire 2014 rwimbo rwitwo wi Ngai mahinda mothe na ningikoretwo ngikinite gwa kahinda na riu nikio ndingiri haha tondu ningiinite na ningiinaga
koguo Ngai wa mahinda mothe rwari rwimbo rwaku rwa mbere
ru ni rwimbo rwakwa rwa mbere
koguo tuonaga kaingĩ muini anjĩrĩria kũina rĩngĩ akaina nyĩmbo nyingĩ igakoma mwe rũgoka rũkahit hihi we nĩguo wambĩrĩirie na kũhit kana wambĩrĩirie na kwamba gũkoma hanini
ndiwe kana kũhit ndahitire tondu rwimbo rwitwo wi Ngai mahinda mothe korwo ni rwakwa rwa mbere na ngĩigua andũ nĩ marũĩ up to date nĩ ndĩciragia nĩ mwathani watumire horo cio kihane uguo no ndingoretwo na arata akwa mundu agakwira ndaini miaka 5 miaka 6 miaka 10 no niĩ gũtiathire uguo tondu mburu nĩ ndaini naruo rũrĩ rwakwa rwa mbere Ngai mahinda mothe andũ makirũmenya makirũiyũkia na rũgĩtuĩka kĩrathimo thĩinĩ wa mĩtũrĩre ya andũ yes
na hihi mundu gwitwo Efa Maina kwenda tumenyithie hihi wĩini waku wambĩrĩirie Paul Waiganjo ndetĩra ambĩrĩirie 2014 we wambĩrĩirie rwĩmbo rũkũ rwa mbere mwaka ũrĩkũ
aini othe marĩ kũhe ndeto ihanaine o toguo auga ũini nĩ kĩheo kĩanjagia wĩ mũnini mũno tondũ ũini nĩ kĩheo kĩmwe ũtangĩringĩrĩria nĩ kĩũndũ kiumaga na thĩinĩ ithuĩ twĩ ciana iria ciainaga kũrĩa Sunday school tũgĩcoka tũgĩthiĩ thukuru kũrĩa gwitũ Mũthithi Mũrang'a ndĩ secondary ndĩ mwana ũmwe warĩa mokire macindano gũkũ KICC na tũgĩtuĩka namba 2 ũguo ũini nĩ kĩndũ gĩkoretwo thĩinĩ wakwa kuma ndĩ mũndũ mũnini na ngagĩũka gake advance tondũ no nginya kĩheo gagĩikara ũgĩkĩhakaga maguta
rwĩmbo rwaku rwa mbere rwarĩ rũrĩkũ na wainĩte rĩ
rwĩmbo rwakwa rwa mbere ngũrani na Waiganjo niĩ rwakwa rwamenyekire rwa kerĩ na ndainĩte rwĩmbo rwĩtagwo Ngai ekuo rwa kerĩ nĩruo rwamenyekire mũno Manyanga Beats rwĩmbo rwĩtagwo Manyanga Beats na nĩ tene nĩ tene
Keteria terere haho kuma he rwĩmbo rũrũ rwa Ngai ekuo ũkaruka gũkũ kwa Manyanga rĩ hihi nĩ atia gwathire
niĩ thĩinĩ wa nyĩmbo ciakwa ciothe kĩndũ kĩa mbere nĩ nyendaga kwa acknowledge ũhoro wa Ngai wa kerĩ nĩ nyendaga kwa acknowledge ũhoro wa mĩciĩ wa gatatũ mũtũrĩre tondũ ũini nĩ ndawa he mũndũ thikagĩrĩria nyĩmbo akahona ũini nĩ message ũheanaga nĩ gũthomithania no nginya kĩndũ kĩu gĩkorwo ho na ũini nĩ kĩndũ kĩa bata mũno tondũ gĩa gũcanjamũra ũguo indo ici nĩ ndũraga ndĩ nacio tondũ ũini to thaa ici ũini nĩ ũkũina thaa ici na nginya thutha-inĩ ũmenye ũgakorwo ũrĩ o mũini
ta tucorere mbica ya ũgĩkũra wĩ mũnini na wĩna kĩheo gĩa kũina mũciari waku hihi nĩ aiyũkagia ũndũ ũcio kana onaga ũhana atĩa
mwena witũ rĩ ngwĩciria nĩguo wĩ gathĩna mũno tondu aini aingĩ andacirĩ kabica ka aini arĩa marĩ harĩa tene rĩ nĩ karĩ na ikeno mũno ũguo aini aingĩ a mwena wa Mataro nĩ kuonekaga ta megũthiĩ maine o ta aini arĩa mainaga hĩndĩ ĩrĩa gwakorwo nĩ ndaci nyingĩ kĩndũ kũnyua kĩingĩ ahiki aingĩ tũũndũ tũingĩ na tũtakebanga ta waingĩra ikeno-inĩ as opposed kũrĩ my brother tondũ waigua ũini wao ũini wa kĩgoco nĩwona nĩ ũkoragwo ũrorereirie harĩa but nĩ egũkĩyugĩra hake ithuĩ tũtiĩyũkĩtio na njĩra nene nginya rĩrĩa no ta rĩu ta niĩ ndĩ ũmwe warĩa matuĩte nĩ ngũina na ngarũre ũini ũrĩa ndĩwonaga na ũrĩa ndanaigua na ngwĩciria nginya ũmũthĩ ndĩ ũmwe wa andũ arĩa mekĩte maũndũ mau
Waiganjo mũkũrĩre waku ũini-inĩ wĩ mwana mũnini
ũhoro wa kũina otoguo nguĩte Ken ndambĩrĩirie kũina tene na ndakĩinaga kanitha-inĩ na ũhoro ũcio na cukuru nĩ ndirikanaga kwĩ hĩndĩ twainaga mũno macindano ma Sunday school na ma cukuru-inĩ na wagĩkoragwo ũkĩonwo no kĩheo gĩa kawaida kĩrĩa gĩtangĩanyitirwo na ũritũ na mahinda marĩa ndakinyire ngĩciria atĩ no nyende kũina tondũ of course nĩ gwakĩrĩa challenge ya mbeca rĩngĩ ona ndĩramenya studio kũrĩa arĩ nĩ ndirikanaga ndarĩkia form 4 niĩ ndauga ndenda gũthiĩ music college na gũtirĩ ũndũ ũngĩ ndendaga na mũciari wakwa ndangĩanyitire kĩu nĩkĩ ndaramwĩra aiguĩte atĩ no arĩhe bithi endie ng'ombe kana mbũri njambi nĩgetha agũtware cukuru atĩ thomere ũhoro wa kũina nĩonaga mũtwe wakwa ũtarĩ mwega ona hĩndĩ aiguire nĩ ndaina ndamenyaga nĩ ndũ icio na kaingĩ na my brother gwĩtwo Maina hihi no akĩtuĩke mũiro wa ũhoro ũcio andũ mendaga gwĩtanio na kĩndũ gĩaku kĩrĩa wambĩrĩria Ken hĩndĩ ĩrĩa gĩatuĩka successful kana hĩndĩ ĩrĩa gĩatuĩka nĩkĩoneka na rĩu hĩndĩ ĩrĩa ndatuĩkire atĩ niĩ nĩ ndĩrainire na nĩ ndĩramenyekire bũrũri wothe na thĩ kũrĩa arĩa othe maiguaga rũthiomi rwitũ nĩguo waiguaga nginya mũciari waku nĩ augaga we wĩ mwana wake Nienda kuikara kigwetaga ona kwanyu gukeranagirwo nawe. Unlike before.
Kwa waiganjo ria winaga.
Ginya muciari waku mwene. No gakoraga maina muciari to murenge no tondu kwina andu matarakimenyeka. We ni wada gwitũgerio. Riu ni last mundu gwitu kwanja family of 10. No riu ni ronaga mami witu ndirari muoyo ni niendaga kugwetanio na ni muno. Na iyo ni nature ya mundu ya ati ndiendaga gwetanio na undu hindira watuika wa kugia ngoga. Koguo wini ni ukoretwo uri process na kindu giothe gikuraga Ken githiaga o kahora o makinya tondu uria ndambiririe tiguo ndi umuthi ni kuri maundu maingi muno menyete. In fact ona guku Inooro-ini ndingiretirwo ikoro ndambiririe kuina Sunday kono narutire bro kwa Sunday ndingiagitwo guku Inooro-ini ni tondu hindira yothe mundu aragithie agikuraga ni agia na experience kana agia na utoku wa maundu kando no ria hihi akorwo ni hindi akiambiriria. Koguo wini nukoretwo wina morito maguo na mahutho maguo no kira kingenagia muno ni ati the kind of songs that I do nie mwene ni korwo iteithio hari ni ingia kinya gukiri consumers ini
hihi ni tuiguaga aini aingi ni mageragira ringi morito ma gugakinyia nyimbo ciao kuri ibatie guthakirwo ta nyumba-ini cia mohoro. Hihi nyu ni mwakorio mukigerera maundu ta macio twaje nawe waiganjo?
Thank you Jabi. Of course maundu macio kana morito macio makoragwo kuo tondu hingo ciothe utari undu uramenya no nginya ugieke na ni hongwarite horo wa experience gauga atiriri urendainie ruboro okoro wa mbere uguo riu tiguo hana nginyagia muthu ona okoro ndio rwamenyekire na mahinda macio ni kwarera mathina tondu media itiakire nyingi ta mahinda ma tukire kuo na tukira Ngai ni wega tondu ni Inooro tari hingo twakinaga maina Inooro TV ndio ni hindi ragiukire wagituraga Inooro FM na riu oria media cigithiete gigiukite ukagia no hotho even the social platforms the digital maundu ma digital makihuthahuthia horo no ni kwari no maurito tondu mumereke agiagithikirire rwimbo ku Ken nigetha aigue rwimbo ni special ndirikana kainde ndokire kurehe kwa Inooro rwimbo na nigucokeria session ya Inooro ngatho muno tondu akoria CD cigana uguo metha-ini na mumereke agiathikirire nyimbo icio ciothe ngeithio rwimbo na quality rwimbo ngithio on air ti uragikoragwo kiri muhuthu mahinda macio no riu Ngai ni akiri mwega ni tondu ona tukigire mahinda macio ri no gwakihuthire na turare na tugakihuna
ninge thikũ ici nikugite na maundu maingi muno kugite na internet thikũ ici mwini ni arahota gwitwarira gwikira rwimbo rwake internet-ini no oho nenda ici cio kinyaniria ri ni irakorwo cina challenges nyingi ringita cia piracy and so on. Ungiuga atia woni waku thiini wa mwini gukorwo akigeria kurangira wini wake kana kiheo giake thiini wa nenda cio kinyaniria?
Wa mbere njoke hau ukuritie uhoro wa nitumite kundu kuraihu na ngwiciria session teno ya Inooro ni mwe iria tungaithiriria tondu twari na morito maingi muno. Muini gutwika ni ukumenyeka utari na producer mwega guti kundu athiaga. In fact mundu tari na mbeca kihinda kiu inyui ni nyu murokire muracenjia maundu maya ma wini muini utari mbeca ndaiguikaga ugukiiguika atia na nginya andu aria riu tari uguo mwatwita na wendo gutiari undu wa kawaida no wetagwo tondu kwina hinya wa mbeca. Muini ni kwahuthagirwo mahaki muno tita ihinda riri ni mwokire mugicenjia maundu ati tari guku guti kindu mundu okaga agetio. In fact ni kuri hwarihagwo nyona mugitaini mukamariha tukamaka muno ithie ni kuri hatwarihaga nigetha tuonwo na tuiguike hau ni kabere umuthi uyu ni gugicenjetie muno na hau agweta horo konie piracy kindu giothe kiega ni kiri mathina makio ni kugite no huthu muno wa muini kumenyeka na maundu maingi no hari tundu twiri tutatu turoka tutari twega tari uhoro wa gutwika andu ni meko download nyimbo cia andu ni gukora mundu ra down anake memenyeretie kana ona airetu he thamburi ukite atiro ya content ya mundu eka download igathondeka tene mutu tuikagia ngari ni tutitaga
flash disk
disk icio agathondeka flash disk magathie kwendia na nduritie mwene rwimbo ni ruri mwene rwimbo ni kiheo kia mundu ucio niguo mugunda wake iyo ni biacara yake ndwagire kuhutia kindu kia mundu riu ucio ni mathina mamwe methiini wa technology na thiini wa art yothe ukona mundu ni ya thenema ya mundu ni ya uini wa mundu wabikira hau ukendie kaundu kangi ninge kena mutugo ungi utakiri mwega no nitukurumbuia nirona mundu ya rwimbo rwa mundu ni aruina ringi mukamita ni cover ndamuritie ndamwariirie ni kuri mawatho thiini wa wini ungienda gwika cover ya mundu mu approach to ti kugirie ni kuri kindu gitagwo kwa sign rights no gwitikirie wike undu no undu ucio watwa kumemerekio kana hari ukurehera faida undu ucio ugatangathwo kerwo rwimbo ruru ni rwa Waiganjo njitikiritio kuina riu ukaruina nigetha faida ciothe cia copyright igakorwo irakora mwene mutungi we nawe ri ti gukiendia hindi iyo
Joria hihi FMI tuiguaga kiugo copyright no tutiwe copyright ringi niki kana we ugo protect wira waku ate nigetha rwimbo ruru rutuike ni rwa Maina ri umuthi no ruine na ndi rucokere rucio tuthio na tuthii gotini ungirugamia document iriku kana uira waku ungikorwo ri uriku ni mwena rwimbo ruru
copyright ri ni rwimbo rwaku wathondeka we watunga we niwe composer wa rwimbo ruru ungithie uruhure no wagĩa na right ingi ya produce icon we weka ningĩ rĩu hĩndĩ ĩrĩa warũneana ariwe wĩna right ingi ya distribution copyright nĩ nene no mwene copyright nĩ ũrĩa ũtungaga ũcio nĩwe the owner of copyright no ũcio nĩwe ũheanaga nĩ akũhengera right ĩno ya reproduce ya distribute to nĩwe mwene ũcio nĩwe mwene ndukeyo
ugo Maina hanini ndĩrenda kũria atĩrĩrĩ nĩ harĩ ta kũrũ mũndũ athiaga ũgatwara ta kwa wakiri kana kaũndũ ta kau nigetha gũtuĩke rwĩmbo rũrũ nĩ rwang'ania
watunga rwĩmbo ri mũini atunga rwĩmbo wagĩire kũrutwara kũrĩ body iria citũ ciĩtĩkĩrĩtio Music Copyright Society of Kenya kũu ũkandĩkithia as a composer nĩ niĩ mwene rwĩmbo rũrũ ũguo mũndũ ũngĩ wothe ndangĩhutia rwĩmbo rũrũ no asainĩirwo na heo rights kuma hau nĩ ũtwaraga kũndũ gwĩtagwo Prisk na kũndũ kũngĩ gwĩtagwo camp acio manyitagĩrĩra production na aya angĩ performing ona rwĩmbo rwa mũndũ ndwagĩire gũthiĩ okũrũ perform ũguo utekwa acknowledge in fact in the very near future wathiĩ performance okorwo nĩ ta gũkũ tũthiaga mĩkawa-inĩ kana kũ nĩ mũrĩheagwo list ũkauga niĩ njĩtagwo ng'ania niĩ ndĩ mũini na ũmũthĩ ngũina rwĩmbo rwa Waiganjo rwa ng'ania nigetha kĩ tondũ mĩkawa nĩ ĩrĩhaga no iguaga mĩkawa nĩ ĩrĩhagio kana ngari matatũ nĩ irĩhagio no iguaga ta gũkwanyu nĩ mũrĩhaga license nigetha ihinda rĩa kũrĩha rĩ o mũndũ akaheo kĩrĩa kĩmũkoni
hihi rĩ body ici wagweta Prisk MCSK citeithagia mũini atĩa ũngĩ harĩ kĩndũ kĩngĩ mũini onaga kuma kũrĩ ngwatanĩro ici kana no kũ protect wĩini waku
nĩ kũrĩ na nĩ woria wega nikio tarĩ ithuĩ twanyitanire ta Tamko Sacco nigetha tucokanĩrĩrie wĩini utige gũtuĩka no kũina nĩ kũina na kũ-invest tondũ nĩ tũrorete tũkona na kũrĩa mbere rĩ aini nĩ mainaga no wacoka kũrora ha ũkũrũ-inĩ wao rĩ matirĩ kĩndũ mangĩhota gwĩtĩĩra ũguo gũgakorwo kwĩna mbeũ iroka njerũ iroka tu ĩgakena ĩkahũthĩra mbeca ta rũciũ igakorwo ho ugacoka ukona mũndũ nĩ athira o ũguo eragwo ũyũ nĩ ũrĩa wĩtagwo nĩ ũrĩa wainaga wetagwo ng'ania rĩu njokie kĩũria gĩaku music copyright Prisk na camp ta rĩu gũkũ tũrĩ mũrĩ amwe arĩa mũrĩhaga igoti na memereki arĩa angĩ othe nĩ marĩhaga igoti rĩkarogotwo rĩgatwarwo kũrĩa kwa music copyright hĩndĩ ĩrĩa ũiguaga matatũ na gũkũ na andũ arĩa othe mara broadcast mũndũ wothe ũhũthagĩra music ti ya gwĩkenia rĩngĩ nĩ kĩrabu-inĩ rĩngĩ nĩ mũkawa-inĩ nĩ ndege-inĩ nĩ matatũ-inĩ nĩ arĩhaga tondũ arahũthĩra music nigetha akenie customer ciake nake nĩ arĩhaga kũrĩ andũ angĩ ndagweta ũhoro wa broadcasters andũ a mĩkawa na ceceni ĩrĩu ta ici cianyu acio nĩo matũrogotagĩra mbeca marogota makarora nĩ maita maigana rwĩmbo rwa Waiganjo rũhũrĩtwo nĩ maita 7 nĩ maita maigana rwĩmbo rwa FMI na rũhũrĩtwo nĩ maita 4 rĩu distribution ĩgĩkwo Waiganjo akaheo kĩgĩna kĩnene nene gũkĩra ũrĩa ũngĩ ũguo wĩra wao nĩ gũtũrogotera mbeca magĩtũgayagĩra
hihi Waiganjo tũtarĩria atĩrĩrĩ rĩu nĩ nguonete mũno ona magathĩrĩrio-inĩ ma Skiza Skiza ĩteithagia mũini atĩa
Skiza nĩ ĩteithagia mũini tondũ nĩ kũrĩ na revenues iria ikĩrogotagwo na nĩgetha mũini agakĩrĩhwo na Skiza nĩ ũkĩte by the way gũtwakwa mũno tondũ rĩu twahandire ta twandĩkirwo mũcara thĩinĩ wa mũico wa mweri niĩ nĩ menyaga thimũ-inĩ gakwa kana bengi-inĩ yakwa mweri fulani nĩ kũrĩ mbeca cirĩingĩra na ngoragwo ndĩcibangĩire ũguo ikĩingĩra nĩmenyaga atĩrĩrĩ haha nĩho ngũrĩhĩra kanyũmba kana nĩho ngũrĩha school fees tondũ nĩ twahanĩtwo twandĩkwo koguo Skiza nĩ ĩkoretwo ĩũteithio ũmwe wa ĩrĩa tũngiuga atĩ nĩyo backbone ya mũini thĩinĩ wa bũrũri witũ wa Kenya ũkonaga atĩ mbeca ciaku nĩ cingĩraga na ũkamenyaga nĩ ũhota ku approximate Kenny ugakoragwo nĩ ũramenya atĩrĩrĩ Njambi mbeca ciakwa cigĩũka rĩ cikoragwo cigana ũũ na nĩkĩo tũthiaga na mbere na kwĩra andũ arĩa mendete nyĩmbo citũ mathiĩ na mbere na download Skiza citũ tondũ hau noho mũndũ ateithĩkagĩra unlike there before rĩu gũtiendagio ũhoro wa CD ona niĩ mwene ndikoragwo na CD tondũ rĩu CD nĩ cithiĩte cieheretio nĩ maũndũ ma digital migration ũgathiĩ ũgakoraga atĩ rĩu tũinaga rwĩmbo rũmwe nĩgetha rwĩmbo rũu rĩ ũkarwendia rwĩ Skiza-inĩ ũkarugathĩrĩria rwakorwo rwĩ rwega rwĩmbo rũ Skiza nĩ downloadagwo mũno na andũ makĩgũraga nyĩmbo icio
ino no korwo he mũndũ wĩ mũciĩ
heka ũndũ ngwenda kuongerera twĩ gũkũ Inooro rĩ no nyende gũcokeria chairman wa Royal Media ngatho nĩ ũndũ wa itemi inene mũno aratemire nĩ tũkoretwo tũkĩhũrana na njĩra nyingĩ mũno nĩgetha Skiza citũ ciongererwo bei na nĩ ũmwe wa andũ arĩa maratemire itemi inene mũno nginya president arakinya gũsaini bill turatuĩka nĩ twauma kũrĩa twarĩ 15% turambata nginya 52%. Uguo icio nĩ ngatho cia mwanya njoke nyongerere njuge apart from Skiza nĩ kũrĩ nyamũ ĩtagwo YouTube akorwo nĩ wendete mũini thiĩ thĩinĩ wa YouTube harĩa ha subscribe tene tũtiwe maũndũ mau tondũ tarĩu nĩ ũkuona andũ ta niĩ na tuinĩte mĩaka mĩingĩ ũkuona nyĩmbo ciakwa twaranjĩirie gwĩkĩra mĩaka 3 no nĩ thutha wa tene andũ nĩ marahũthagĩrwo ũru mũno no thaa ici rĩ ũini nĩ ũkũrĩte ũguo korwo nĩ wendete mũini thiĩ harĩa YouTube nayo nĩ ĩrateithia andũ mũno Skiza nĩ ĩrarĩ handũ nayo YouTube nĩ ĩrarĩ handũ rĩu ũkona mũini maũndũ marĩa twacemanagia na Kenny na gũkũ tũgĩthiũrũrũka na CD na cassette mau nĩ maũndũ mathiru tondũ ũndũ wothe rĩu ũkĩte thimũ-inĩ ũguo okorwo nĩ wendete mũini thiĩ download Skiza yake nĩ ũramũteithia okorwo nĩ wendete mũini thiĩ YouTube-inĩ yake hihinya gũsubscribe na ũthikagĩrĩrie nyĩmbo ciake na ũgashare mũno
taru Famaina YouTube wena YouTube channel yako ĩtagwo atĩa
yakwa nĩ Famaina official
Famaina official
yes.
Waiganja
Paul Waiganja official
yes.
Ngwenda gũcoka ndĩra gũcoka ciũria tũragio mũno twĩ haha rĩu ndĩ mũini na ũkahũrĩrwo gathimũ ndĩ mũini no nyende kũina ngwanjĩrĩria ha ndĩ nyahururu kana ndĩ Laikipia ũngĩ advice mũndũ ekwanjia ha
maũndũ nĩ mahũthĩre mũno mũndũ gwĩtwo Ken na ona ithuĩ ũguo noguo tũhũragĩrwo rĩu thimũ tondũ hĩndĩ mũndũ anyona kana ona nyĩmbo ciakwa nĩ akoragwo agĩciria nĩ ngũmũteithia na nĩ tũteithagia andũ na njĩra ĩno ĩmwe producers nĩ maingĩhire mũno rĩu studios titoguo mainauga ngwĩciria kahinda kau karĩ gakĩritũ niĩ ndigakorereire gati no nginya we ũngĩarutire mbeca ciaku Ken nĩgetha ũproduce rĩu maũndũ nĩ macenjirie tondũ wa maũndũ ma digital studio nĩ nyingĩ mũno in fact rĩu cinginya estate-inĩ however nĩ gũkĩrĩ stage studio iria ikoragwo na quality atĩ producer ũcio angĩruta rwĩmbo rũu ona media-inĩ nĩ rũgwĩtĩkĩrĩka na no rũthakwo koguo ithuĩ nĩ tũteithagia andũ kana niĩ at individual level mũini akũhũrĩra tũmũribaga kũrĩ producer not unless hihi angĩ magĩkorwo magĩciria nĩ tũkĩmahe mbeca rĩu ũkĩmũheaga namba ya producer akahũra makaranĩria agathiĩ nĩgetha agaproduce maũndũ nĩ mahũthire na njĩra ĩyo mũno number 2 wona waina waruta video rĩu nĩ gwagĩire na ũhoro wa Facebook tũpostaga nginya videos icio nĩgetha andũ magathiĩ na mbere kũmenya nyĩmbo rĩu ũgatinia rĩngĩ kĩbungo kĩmwe na chorus ũgekĩra nĩgetha ũgekĩra link yaku ya YouTube hau nĩgetha hĩndĩ ĩrĩa mũndũ ahingũra rwĩmbo rũu agathiĩ YouTube koguo maũndũ ma promotion ya nyĩmbo for sure nĩ mahũthĩte mũno na ngĩongerera kiugo kĩu mũthuri gwĩtwo Mainauga Skiza yakwa niĩ mwene rĩu tingano iria ciĩragwo cia marimũ atĩ anga moi anga na maũndũ marĩa mangĩ Skiza twakwa rĩu nĩ ndĩraigua tũbeca nĩ tũrongererekeire ti ta ũrĩa tũrakoragwo na tũbeca we ũraigua nĩ tũragũkenia Kenny nĩ tondũ wa itemi rĩu rĩambĩrĩirio nĩ chairman ũgwĩtwo SK na andũ maikoretwo nao magatindĩka ũhoro ũcio koguo nĩ tuonete impact nene mũno na nĩ kĩrona mũini ena gathuti nĩ kĩrona mũini ena gacati gaka kega ũguo nĩ tondũ nĩ arona tũmaciringi tondũ mũini nĩ arĩ influence nene mũno Kenny nĩ ũkoraga mũini nĩ endetwo nĩ andũ mũno na gũtirĩ kĩndũ gĩkenagia mũndũ ta hĩndĩ ĩrĩa onete mũndũ ũrĩa endete ta rĩu kwĩ hĩndĩ ndĩrarĩ Kirinyaga Road ona ndũngĩhota nginya kũhetũka Kenny nĩ tondũ andũ arĩa maragũkenerera nĩ marenda ũndũ ũcio tũgagĩkena nĩ tondũ rĩrĩ ũngĩgĩthiĩ kũu Kirinyaga Road na kamũbuto nĩ gakĩhĩte nä kariwa nä å rä a å kä harire na kä ratå nä gä kä inamire rä ändå akiona rä u ona andå nä mekånyarra å horo wa wä ini but now maå ndå nä marathiä macenjetie å gakoraga atä nä å rä hagwo nä YouTube ta må ico wa mweri ta må cara na nä å rä hagwo nä skiza ona å rä hä te igoti rä u å gakora atä na mbeca å rakä ona
å gå hihi muini angä hå thä ra mbeca ta cigana gå kinyanä ria atä nä ndaingä ra studio nä ndaproduce rwä mbo rwakwa na nä rå raiguä karä
no kå ringanaga na rä rä å ndå wothe rä nä å rä kä rathi å ta å rä a kä ratå kä u no kä ratå na å ngä neå kana kä ratå gä a 200 no no kä ratå ngä kana kä a 10,000 no no kä ratå ona thimå nä å kuona thimå ya igana rä a 50 gå kå mä taro-inä njambi ngwä cire maå ndå macio nde yohetwo na kaburanda na no ä raria na hena thimå ä ngä nä ya 10,000 ona no kå rä thimå nginya ya 250 ä yo no ciothe nä thimå the same case applies na productions cia music nä kå rä studio cina gå kå thiaga å gakora cina raithi å gakora microphone ĩyo nĩ ya raithi but ũngĩkorwo wĩna between 15,000 na 20,000 nĩ ũkũhota gũproduce rwo nĩ one of the best producers makũrutĩra audio wĩna video 15,000 20,000 30 nĩ ũkũhota kũrutĩrwo
nĩ rwĩmbo rũmwe kana nĩ
rwĩmbo rũmwe ũndũ ũkũrutĩrwo
koguo ti album
of course ndũ nĩ gũkĩrĩ audio audio rĩu wagĩkĩrĩrwo ngitano kĩhũrĩrwo nĩ producer na kĩ 15,000 igĩthiĩ ngiri kĩbaũ rĩ Ken nĩ ũrutĩte audio njega mũno ĩna quality ya igũrũ mũno ingĩenda gwĩthikĩrĩria tena manegene ũcoke ũkĩrutĩrwo video between also 15 20 or 25,000 gũkĩringana na quality ya video ũngĩkĩenda koguo na no kũrĩ video gwĩthiĩ ũkĩragwo ngiri igana rĩmwe
koguo kũringanaga na ũrĩa we ta mũini
ta rĩu niĩ rĩ ngĩheana example rĩ video yakwa wĩ ngai mahinda mothe tondũ ndarĩ mũharu mũno
pole
ndaharĩte ngarora hamwe
koguo nĩ ũrutĩtwo mũtondo-inĩ
ndarĩhire ngiri 7 na ndarĩhire na mĩeri 2 no anyita no nĩ harĩ video ndĩrainire thaa ici randĩire close to 200,000 no reke ngĩkwĩre ĩyo yakwa ya wĩ ngai mahinda mothe nĩyo yamenyekire gũkĩra ĩrĩa njĩrĩgĩte kũruta ndiũ kana tũraiguithania nĩ ndĩmĩrora ngĩaiguĩra thangageria ũrĩa ĩngĩcenjio
yoke ũguũrũ-inĩ
yoke ũrĩa rĩu ndĩ thaa ici yoke ũrĩa hana ĩgakĩrema koguo rĩ we need kĩndũ tricky na nĩ kĩndũ interesting at the same time no rĩu nĩ ũgwĩkora atĩrĩrĩ sometimes mbeca nĩ iragĩ position mũndũ tondũ korwo hingo ndarĩ na tũbeca ngĩshoot video ya shootĩte thaa ici rĩ ĩngĩkorwo kĩrĩ ũndũ mwega mũno
kaũndũ ingĩenda kuongerera rĩ na nĩ wangenia Waiganjo tondũ andũ aingĩ nĩ mageragia mũno gũtharia kĩambĩrĩria no kĩambĩrĩria nake Ngai akĩbangĩte gĩikare atĩa ona no advise mũndũ ka video kau ũguo waconĩtwo nĩ ini ndũgakahutie ũreka gaikare ũguo nĩgetha ũkaririkanaga kũrĩa Ngai akũrute andũ acio makũhũragĩra thimũ magakwĩra nĩ marenda gũteithio andũ acio mahũraga thimũ no ndĩmere ithuĩ rĩu thaa ici nĩ tũnyitanĩte ta ini tũgathondeka Tamko Sacco rĩ wĩra witũ nĩ mathĩna marĩa twarĩire tũtikwenda mũini ingĩ agere thaa ici tũraria na nĩ ngũcokeria Waiganjo ngatho tondũ tũkĩanjia Tamko Sacco nĩ watũhoithirie mahoya marĩa manene mũno na mega takĩ nĩ tũgĩthiĩte wega na kũrĩa Keno nĩ tũraka studio nene mũno in fact thaa ici twĩ ngoroba ya kerĩ nĩ tũmĩrĩkĩtie kũrĩa rungu na purpose ya gũthondeka studio ĩyo nĩgetha mũini wothe ũgũka kuma Ngai ateithia mũico wa mwaka ũyũ mũini arĩhũraga oro thimũ ti gũka gũtinda agĩthiũrũrũka agoka akaingĩra studio citũ arekondwo akahũrĩrwo video oro kũu ahũrĩrwo video oro kũu rwĩmbo rwake rũgacambacwo thĩinĩ wa maceceni tondũ kũu nĩkuo tũgũkorwo na akaivia aini arĩa manjĩrĩirie tene Kamaru na nginya ũrĩa ũroka kuma hau nĩ tũgũkorwo na system ya kwendia mũini ũcio tondũ tũrenda ũini ũgĩe na njĩra ũguo rĩ we are structured now na kwĩna njĩra ũguo matigũcoka kũmũgia mũini wothe na nĩ ngũmakaribisha ũmũthĩ ũrenda kũingĩra wĩho tonya thĩinĩ wa Tamko Sacco woka waingĩra thĩinĩ wa Tamko Sacco mathĩna mau mothe nĩ megũgũthirĩra
hanini Jabi ngwĩraga ũtwĩre Tamko Sacco yugĩte atĩa
Tamko Sacco yugĩte talented musicians and composers
talented musicians
oko wĩna kĩheo you are talented musician no ko wĩ composer mũtungi
kana mwandĩki
tondũ kũrĩ andũ hau nĩ ngũruta kĩrĩa kĩmwe harĩ hau harĩ andũ marutaga wĩra wa ena kĩheo gĩa gũtunga no we ndangĩina koguo niĩ ndĩ ta Njambi rĩ ngandĩka rwĩmbo ngenderia Waiganjo koguo ona mwandĩki ũyũ rĩ included thini wa sako
we mwitikiriku you are composer na ngurire yo bata muno riu taru we thini wa music copyright wagire kurihwo gutunga waiga njo hindi wa ina rwimbo rwaku arihwo kuina ku perform na ke uyu arihwo kurwendia na kurusambaza thini
na kiuria kia mwisho tutanamba gwikiria oro hanini Tamko sako eno ri ndaigua ni murathondeka studio na maundu maria mangi hihi aini aria meguteithika ri ni aria members a sako eo kana ni ngina muini ure yukiriria
riu ucio ure yukiriria ri niwe twetereire muno nigetha ndagoke ore ndagoke abagabage uria twabagabagire ndagoke ateraini tondu nginya kuu twina office ya mentorship na ya kurunga muini ikuma kihumo tondu ungithondeka kindu kuma githi wire mundu uyu ni uini no uine rwimbo tariu no igwa rwimbo rwa iganje twendete muno aini rwa mbere rukiringa wega muno uguo no ukawine rwimbo rumwe rukone rwo munyaka waku uguo wageire kuhitwo uti raino na rwambe tukenjania hare kihumo-ini uguo turenda muini uyu uroka uyu utuire no uyu ukuriire guku tumugarure tondu ni tureka investment nyingi migunda tere njiguaga waiganjo makendia ni turenda kwanjiriria uhoro wa real estate turenda music icenjie tugakorwo ni tureciria uhoro wa umuthi na rucio rwitu nigetha twage kurari ugacerera muthuri uyu na miaka 70 wina mukwanjo mwega na wi mundu wa bata
yes wina to machiringi muhuko
wina kibeti ini
gwera tobe tuhomuke oro hanini njiguaga waihura uga Michael nitukwamba kuhomuka kogo Michael wejitegeri tobe tuhomuke
niguo waihura nitukihuruke
tugicoka turore mahandu mari
Ni aje, unajua juzi nilisikia kuna politician fulani alisema kitu controversial sana, lakini si unajua vile watu saa zingine upenda kuongeza chumvi kwa story. Mimi nilikuwa nataka kujionea mwenyewe nisidanganywe. So ngoja kiasi. Yes, sasa mimi sikungoja kuambiwa. Nilipata the full story hapa kwa simu yangu kupitia app ya Citizen Digital. Hata wewe unaweza pata hii app pia. Unataka nikuoneshe?
Stay informed on all the news and events as they happen across the country, the continent, and the world at large. Download Citizen Digital, Kenya's #1 news app.
Niki ureka guku rumu-ini ya Karani? Githio ti album yake?
Eno? Asha.
Ni ndirakuria prite naku. Wendo njire na kuria ngikoro ari. Niki?
Mundu ungi urenda cai?
Ona ni ndirenda. Thikiriria na unjikirire tangauthi.
Ningwikira kiria giothe urenda mami.
Na wakuongerere chocolate.
aciarĩtwo nĩguo kũrenyire ũkombo-inĩ wa thĩna nĩwe humbĩte nyere na riri wa iganda andũ makĩria ma 3,000 akamahe mawĩra ndagĩtarĩ thuo wa mathenge kana wa ngũkũ
Mundu no thuo wa mathenge
2013 rugama ugavana thinĩkanĩrio nĩ mabroka ma kahũa 2017 ũgĩthanyĩre mũtũre na mathĩna thũ cikĩnyitana cikĩhenania gavana wanyu ndathomete
rĩrĩa ndĩrenda gũteithia andũ a Nyĩrĩ mokaga makageria kũnyenjera marima
mwaka ũyũ wa 2022 ningĩ maramũthinĩkanio rĩngĩ kũrĩa kũriku mũno Ngai aramũgĩra kuo aramwambararia naguo mũingĩ wa Nyĩrĩ ũramũkĩra mwana wao na rĩu nĩwe marathura arĩ gavana Nyĩrĩ guothe no wa ngũkũ
andũ aitũ a Nyĩrĩ thurai tuthondeke utonga witũ wa Nyĩrĩ
aya imotora muthia out hihi ciana ciao kamuria migunda ikigayo mwariku
haya warauga atia niki
urauga atia ukende muonie kuria migunda itigarire kundu kwina raithi kilomita 2 kuma haria kangundoro ndi gukaha mugunda-ini ni goko gugitagwa Dagmar Guruni Green Gardens haya niki ndume hau na wena thitima ukaide muonie
iga igora
goteke ndogotari thukuru nayo ndikirio haha na maneighbor maya kuragia tiriri ni macucangite bei nginya 380 na deposit uraigira ciringi 50 ofisi cia Nyĩrĩ ofisi citũ ri ci haria Ruiru bypass CNM center first floor Dagmar Land Investment we promise we deliver
Kambuni ya Roiro Mabati Factory nĩ ĩmwe ya thondeki njũru a mabati ma kũgita nyũmba. Tũthondekaga mabati mĩthemba mĩingĩ na ma gĩkĩro kĩa igũrũ marĩa matũraga ihinda iraihu na magathakaria mũgitĩre wa nyũmba yaku makĩria. Mabati maya metagwo box profile, Europe tile, Jenga tile, corrugated S profile na mangĩ maingĩ na mokaga na marangi maingĩ ngũrani. Mabati maitũ nĩ metiragia mbura nene na riũa rĩhiũ na koguo makagĩrĩra nyũmba cia biacara na cia gũikarwo. Nĩguo gwĩtia oda yaku, tũcerere showroom-inĩ itũ mwena wa Roiro Town na no tũcerere rũrenda-inĩ rwitũ nĩruo www.roiromabati.co.ke kana ũkenerere ũtungata wa kũreherwo mabati maku harĩ ũrĩ gwa kahinda ka mathaa 72 tu. Roiro Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Karo wa Mwaura na niĩ nĩ ngoinĩire rwĩmbo rũu rwa ndĩ mũhotani na no ũkĩhota gũkorwo ũkĩhotana mbara ciothe kũgerera gwĩkĩra rwĩmbo rũu rwĩta skiza tune ya thimũ yaku na no kaũndũ kahũthũ mũno. Oya thimũ yaku ngũtarĩrie, ũgwĩkĩra star 812 790 hash ũcoke ũtũme. Ngũririkanie Inooro nĩ mũciĩ wa aini othe.
Na rĩu maya nĩ mohoro maitũ ma thaa 4 kamenyithia te commission ya ithurano na mĩhaka ĩrĩ na mũcemanio na ahũranĩri gĩturwa gĩa president. Reka tũthiĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe tũigue ũrĩa kũrathiĩ na mbere mwena ũcio.
Be given the ballot papers for them to go and cast their vote. Assuming that we have got 700 voters in a polling station, which is actually the maximum number of voters allowed by the law, then the KIMS kit will be having 700 voters multiplied by 10 fingerprints, because each and every individual has got 10 fingerprints. So we'll basically, during enrollment process, we normally take all the 10 fingerprints. So in the identification process, the voter will be using their fingers. If the thumb does not work, they will use the other fingers. You can even test all the 10 fingers to make sure they are working. The reason for that is because there is a possibility of false rejection, that a legitimate voter appeared to come and vote, but the identification system is unable, the fingerprint reader is unable to recognize this. And this could be for several reasons. It could be because the person is doing hard labor and using their hands. It because maybe also they are masonry, they are touching a lot of stones and all this. So it is possible for their fingerprint quality to be not good, and therefore the default method is supposed to check, and when you place your finger in the fingerprint reader, the fingerprint, and assuming that we have 700 voters, it will scan through 7,000 fingerprints, because we are talking about 700 times 10 per voter. So it will scan through 700 fingerprints to see whether this fingerprint that has been placed there matches with any fingerprint that is there. So in case then this doesn't work, then the next step is now to use what we refer to as complementary method. And this is where we are going to use the ID number or the passport number. Essentially, the document that the voter actually used to register during registration. So we'll actually enter the ID number, or even at the back of the ID number, there is a feature that you can use MRZ to scan, and it will actually populate the information on the screen. So which information are you going to see on the screen when you use the national ID number or the passport number? You are going to see the photo of that voter. You are going to see the name. Essentially, the details appearing on the ID is what is going to appear on the screen of that KIMS kit. And with the picture, you are able to now positively identify that this is a voter who is supposed to vote, and therefore you can allow. But before that, before even allow, when you retrieve this information regarding the voter, you also retrieve the 10 fingerprints that we actually use to enroll. And therefore, the voter still can be given an opportunity to still place their finger. And now the KIMS kit will search against the 10 fingerprints as opposed to 7,000 fingerprints. That gives opportunity again also for the scanner to check the quality of fingerprints, and most likely this person is going to be identified. But in case this person is not identified, even when you can be able to see their picture, we can say this is the right voter, and therefore we will call the candidates, the representative of the agents of the presidential representative, for them to come and witness. We will issue Form 32A that will be used now to confirm that this person has been identified through complementary method. So when the commission talk about complementary method, we are referring to complementary method that is used when the biometrics fail, and they can fail for various reasons like what I've stated. Now, it is also important to know that the SD cards holds information regarding biographical information and biometric. The biographical information is the replica of what is actually in the physical register. It has the photo, it has the name, it has everything, including the ID. Now, if we now turn to use of the register, and previously this is what we have done, when a voter appears at the polling station, the voter is going to be identified using biometric as a default method. If it fails, then you use the complementary method. But after being identified, the clerk will look for the name of this voter in the physical register and cross it out. That was the method that we used before. And this method is prone to abuse. This is what we are trying to say. It's prone to abuse. Why? And this is what I want to actually demonstrate today. Because it is good when we can say that it can be used to check, for example, how many people have voted in case maybe there's an issue of technology. But when you identify voters through technology, the system automatically archives. It archives the details of those who have voted, meaning that if that person is supposed to present himself again, then that person cannot be able to vote. The system automatically will sound an alarm, and therefore we will know that somebody who has voted is coming back again to vote. Over and above that, the system will also maintain account entirely of those people who have actually voted. At the same time, the system is in a position to, when you are opening the polling station, it will send information as to what time that KIMS kit was opened. And then periodically, at some point of time, it will be sending information regarding the turnout of the voters who have just voted. So this information can be used to tell the country how many people have actually voted. In addition, if later on you also want to analyze the information in terms of how many people have voted, how many females have voted, how many youth have voted, this information is likely to be provided with analysis of that information. Now, if you look on the other side, and this is what we were doing before, we were identifying people through use of KIMS kit, but at the same time also crossing out the register of voter. When you do that, and when you use the complementary method, whereby we give Form 32A for those who have not been identified biometrically, but through alphanumeric search, then we cross out the names in the register. A certain period of time when people are tired, around 3-4ish like that, and especially in remote areas where there are no observers, or maybe where there are also strongholds, it's possible for people now just to use information, the register of voter, like ID, to key in the KIMS, retrieve that information, allow the people to vote when they're actually not there in the first place. This is what we are saying, that this is something that can be exploited, and therefore it can lead to people winning illegitimately. And that is why the Commission is keen to ensure that the method that is going to be used will actually guarantee free and fair election. Now, this is what we are talking about. When you look at it, basically, it makes sense. Our returning officers will be at the tallying center, waiting for results from the presiding officers. The presiding officers are just temporary officials that we recruit. They are going to work for possibly 2 weeks. These are the people who are going to be responsible for declaring results at the polling station. And the results announced at the polling station is final. And we are going to give them a big responsibility, including possibility of them also using the details in the physical register to use in the biometrics, in the KIMS kit. And potentially, basically, allowing people, or maybe even people, to vote more than once. Because if I'm somebody's friend and is a presiding officer, and I come and I say my ID number is this, and that ID number is basically entered, this information is populated there, and I'm allowed by the presiding officer, then it is possible that you can even do it ceremoniously when people are tired. Just keep on entering the ID numbers, passport number, and clearing the remaining one. So you can see that maybe in a polling session you have got 100% turnout, 99% turnout, 98% turnout, which maybe may not be true. So to hedge against that, it is the reason why the Commission is advocating for this. But I am happy that today the stakeholders, the people who have got stake in this election, are here, so that this matter can be deliberated on. And whichever position is agreed today is what the Commission is going to go with. We are not going to stick to our guns. We are going to say that, okay, if this is what has been agreed, then let's go with it. But we must also understand the potential risks that are actually inherent in that process. Now, so that is about why use the KIMS kit to identify biometrically, and to use alphanumeric search as a complementary method vis-a-vis using now the physical register. Now, I think also the issue has been, how can you guarantee us that the technology is going to work? It's going to work without failing us, so that we can be comfortable as we are conducting ourselves, as people are voting. What assurance can the Commission give us? I think this is a challenge to us. But what I want to state is that, first of all, as we speak, in 2017, we bought 45,000 KIMS kits. And during our checking, because we have got a production factory, we are actually checking all of them to confirm how many are in a good conditions that can be able to be used during election. We actually observed that 41,000 out of 45,000, 41,000 are actually in good working condition. Now, you are also aware that, and this information is in the public domain, that we bought 14,100 KIMS kits. Now, if you add 41,000 KIMS kits to 14,100, you get approximately 55,100. We have also gazetted that the number of polling stations to be used in 2022 election is 46,233. If you subtract 55,100 from 46,233, the figure that you get, if you divide by 1,450 words, you will get that we will have 6 backup KIMS kits per word. Now, in comparison to 2017, we had 45,000. And the number of polling stations were 40,893. 883. If you subtract from 45,000 and you divide that figure by 1450, you will find that we had 2.8 backup kits. Essentially, if you round it upward, it's actually 3 kits per ward. Meaning that we are going to this election with more backup kits compared to 2017. And therefore, this is to assure you that the mechanism has been put in place to make sure that the system is going to work. Also, what I wanted to let you know is that the KIMS kit, as I said, it works offline in terms of identification. It does not connect to any back end in terms of identification, because, like I said, the information regarding the register is the resident in the SD card. That is the biographic as well as the biometric information. Suppose we have a challenge with one KIMS kit, and based on our assessment, it's beyond repair, we cannot be able to use it. The simple thing to do is just to remove the SD card, bring the backup kit, and insert in this new backup kit, and there it is, it's going to work. It is going to pick from where actually we stopped from. And this information, like I say, is the resident in the SD card. So there is no cause to worry about, because we can swiftly be able to provide that backup kit and by inserting the SD card from the kit that is malfunctional in a kit that is working, we can be able to restore very quickly and we work without losing any time. But suppose we lose time, again, also, the law allows us to compensate for the lost time. So we are giving you all the assurances that the technology that we are going to use is going to work and is going to guarantee free, fair, and credible election. But going back to the issue of physical register, and I want you to go to the second slide. I want us to take ourselves back to 2017, whereby this similar issue was actually litigated upon, and it was actually litigated under Civil Appeal number 328 of 2017, in a case where the IBC was sued. So it was a case between NASA and IBC. In this petition, the aggrieved party argued that voter identification and transmission of election results should be exclusively electronic. That was the argument in 2017. And the court litigated on this case, and this petition was actually dismissed. Now, on the same case, the Court of Appeal adopted the IBC internal memo dated 27th July 2017, which stated that the procedures leading to complementary mechanism of voters' identifiers should include, as stated there, that is, the presiding officer should ensure that voters are identified using biometric features, that is, using their fingerprints. And biometric identification is a primary mode of identifying voters. That is the ruling. And 3, where a voter cannot be identified using biometrics, then alphanumeric search as complementary mechanism will be deployed in the presence of agents. The presiding officer will only resort to use of a printed register of voters after approval by the Commission and upon confirmation that a kit has completely failed and there is no possibility of repair or replacement. In which case the procedures in Regulation 26 of the Election Technology Regulations of 2017 basically applies. I think my last slide on this, and this is basically, like I said, is just to set tempo so that it can elicit discussion between the Commission and the stakeholders. Then why are we saying that we should use? I think I've been very, very clear in terms of why should we use a physical register why should you not use the physical register and use the KIMS kit as a method of identifying voters, either through their biometrics or complementary method? One is because, for one, the Court of Appeal judgment actually recognizes alphanumeric search as a complementary mechanism, which ruling I think up to now has not been challenged. It is still in force. And two, like I stated before, the printed register basically creates a haven for conspiracy in the casting of illegitimate votes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've tried my best to explain what is actually at stake here. And therefore, either I should be guided whether now you want to discuss this past, or you want me to continue and finish with the issue of the reverse path, and then the matter can be discussed together. Your guidance, Mr. Chairman. I proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know the candidates are very busy. They want to finish up with this and they go on the campaign trail. Unless you want to have a cup of tea, we finish with this and we finish one by one.
Finish with the print register and go to the next one.
Silence, please. Silence, please. Yeah, so I think the feeling is that we deal with the issue one by one. So let's discuss the issue of the printed register and the digital register, and then move on to the issue of the results transmission.
Thank you. And now I believe is a discussion between the stakeholders. Thank you.
Yes, so I'll hear the plenary. We shall have, I see the senior presidential candidate has the mic. And then we shall take all the comments and then we respond accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this year, I wish if he is making a presentation, if he could go quickly to allow us matters more time for discussion. Now, I have two of my officers here who have issues to raise on the matter that has been explained here. Paul.
Chairman, first, on the issue of the complementary system, we did write a letter on the 27th of June, and we were hoping that we would have gotten a response to that. But what CEO has said about what the Court of Appeal said was not correct. Because what the case did say at the High Court was that a complementary system must be different under Section 44A, must be different than what you have under Section 44. And in fact, they said that that is why Section 44A uses the word notwithstanding. And Section 44 says that you use technology. So when Section 44A tells you to have a complementary system, it says a system that is complementary to technology. So you cannot revert back to Section 44 again to a system under Section 44 when it has failed. Secondly, what the Court of Appeal did say was that Regulation 69 is your complementary system. And it upheld the fact that you have used Regulation 69 and upheld that is going to be taken to be the complementary system. And if you read that judgment, I will ask you to look at paragraph 27 of that judgment. I think nobody is saying that you use printed registers. We are saying that system should be in place. The law requires you to have that system in place so that if anything should fail, it should be there. What is concerning is not that the insistence is that you don't use technology. They say, yes, use technology, use all the system that have been described, but the law requires you to have that system in place. Whether it is going to be used or not, but the law requires you to have it in place. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Saitabao Kanchori, and I'm the National Chief Agent for the Presidential and Deputy Presidential Candidates for Azimio. What my colleague Paul Mwangi has said is the legal position. In fact, the Court of Appeal decision that the CEO referred to was very clear. I do not want to read specific provisions of that Court of Appeal decision, but the upshot of that decision was that by dint of Section 44A, by dint of Regulation 69, the Commission is obliged, legally obliged, to use the printed register. And the use of the printed register is very specific. It is a complementary mechanism, but it is also a safety mechanism. It is also a safety mechanism in the sense that it is able, the printed register is able to, first of all, confirm that the person appearing before the clerk is a registered voter. That is why the law requires that when a voter appears, the clerk calls out the name of the voter as it appears in the printed register. Also, the reason that the law requires that the name of the voter is struck out or cancelled from the printed register is because you are able to confirm at a glance from the printed register who has voted and who has not. And lastly, the printed register has never been the problem in our elections. I think for the Commission to say in broad daylight that all the problems that we have had in our elections, and there have been many, are the fault of the printed register, I think that is not true, and it is not the position. In 2017, the problem was transmission of results. Could the Commission tell us how the printed register was involved in the transmission of results? Having said that, the law is clear. The printed register has to be used as a complementary mechanism. The law has not been amended. The Commission has not made any efforts to amend the law. Section 44A is still there. Regulation 69 is still there. And so it is our position that for elections to be free and fair, the law has to be upheld to the letter. We are concerned that if the law is not upheld, then anyone can go to court. If the printed register is not used according to the law, then someone can go to court and say these elections were not held in compliance with the law. Lastly, I want to give my colleague, George Joroge, to deal with the technical aspects of the register. Thank you very much. The technical aspects.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think you did speak to the issue of the KIMS kit, and of particular interest is the issue you talked about the SD cards. Number one, are the SD cards encrypted or not? When you talk about the SD cards archiving the data, are you manipulating the database as it is, as a user, as the respective voters are voting? Now, one of the things that has come out very clearly was the issue of the KIMS kit. Now, how likely are we to identify all the voters, in particular the prisms, in reading the data of the user, the fingerprints, in terms of guarantee
As you know, in the 2017 election, we missed about 2.5 million people to be identified on the KIMS kit. The other issue is the issue of the KIMS kit. On your tender for the KIMS kit, one of the requirements was that the KIMS kit must come with an MDM, the mobile device management. Now, this includes the issue of access to the KIMS kit on remote at each polling station. Talk to us on the issue of your connectivity to each of the KIMS kit. Do you have real-time connectivity to it or not? The other issue is on the KIMS kit also, is the geofencing. Is each of the KIMS kit geofenced to each of the polling stations? Now, when you talk about there being KIMS kit that are there for backup purposes, are they within the geofence KIMS kit or not?
What we discussed in the physical register.
Okay.
Why don't we dispose of that? Then we can now move to the other issue.
Okay.
Otherwise, we shall not finish this conversation.
Okay.
I'm aware, Asmi has written a letter on the KIMS kit.
Okay.
Maybe the Commission will respond fully, but I may also ask our CEO to then address some of the issues raised in that letter.
Majority of the concerns, as I raised, Mr. Chair, is the issue of the identification of the voters. When you talk of, for instance, the issue of the archiving of the register of the people who have automatically voted, are you saying then the database at each of the polling station is being manipulated? Because when you archive, it means that you have either deleted or you've added somebody else. Okay.
We have another team. Let's take UDA. Then we go to Agano. Then we come to Roots. You like to say anything? No. So UDA then Agano on the issue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Presidential Returning Officer. And as I said earlier, Josephat Nanok is my name. I am the chief agent for UDA Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate, who is not here with us with his running mate because of a schedule he had done earlier. Remember very well your letter yesterday changing the timing from the afternoon to morning. Was received by us very late, and we even wrote to you to reschedule the time. But I think in the absence of a response from you, we were forced to come and represent him. But he may catch us with us.
There was no afternoon session. The letter of invite talked of 9 a.m., so there was no afternoon session. But
okay, you'll be joining us if we continue. We've listened to your presentation. We've been discussing internally with the running mate, the candidate and the running mate on the issue of the register. And we think that there is a very strong case to maintain the electronic register as the Commission has suggested, because our bigger interest is the credibility and transparency of this election. And I think that is very critical. You have given us an assurance that you have sufficient KIMS kits, and in fact, even an extra 6 which are a backup. We think this is fair. I don't know what the discussion around the printed register is all about. If the electronic one can be able to provide the transparency required and be able to be accessed by all voters, except in the stations which the Commission informed us, 1,111 polling stations with no 3G. I think we would like to know the assurance that this will be done in these stations, but also in the event of technology failure. How are you going to be addressing this? Because that immediately creates concerns if this matter isn't addressed. And then we also noted that you've recently gazetted the registered voters per ward we are yet to see the gazetted register per polling station, so that we be contented with the numbers of voters you'll be registering per polling station in the various KIMS kits. Thank you.
Yes, you want to add?
Yes, I would want to add something towards my colleagues' presentations regarding KIMS kit or the use of the physical register. It is true that the physical register does open opportunities for people to walk in, pretend they are being verified from the physical register when they have not been identified through the KIMS kit, and a result of which you could have many unregistered voters entering, or voters not registered in specific polling centers, entering into the stations, accessing ballot papers, and voting by avoiding or circumventing the KIMS kit. Notably, the electronic identification of voters is a primary mode of identification. We should now not create a system that gives us a circumvent of that identification system. It will be very sad if we drive Kenya back to the place where we started many years ago, where identification was only being done through the physical register. So from my end, I would be more interested in knowing what is loaded in the KIMS kit. What register is loaded in the KIMS kit? Because even if you printed that register and what is in the KIMS kit is what is in the physical register, nobody then needs to worry. The good thing about the KIMS kit, it has digital footprints. It can actually say, we have 20 people who walked into this station, and as opposed to the physical register, if 30 people walked in, you're not able to verify using their identification, their biometrics. You're not able to say using biometrics that a real human being walked in, or that human being was only given one vote. One man, one vote, one woman, one vote. The physical register would open opportunities for one person walking in, purporting that the KIMS kit has not identified them, purporting to use the physical register, and thereby allowing even one voter to vote 5 times within a station. So for me, I think it is important we keep to the KIMS kit. It has a complementary method, and it is preloaded. In fact, what I think IEBC should be doing right now is opening the system of what you are loading into the KIMS kit. The political parties would want to know, are you loading the correct registers into the KIMS kit? Where is the audit report by KPMG? How many voters had been transferred to wrong polling stations? Have they been restored back to their polling centers? Once we verify we have the right register going into the KIMS kit, then we will have the confidence that what is preloaded into the KIMS kit is going to be okay. We are also aware of the fact that the identification system is not using the network system, because we assume you have preloaded that record into the KIMS kit. So whether there is network failure or no network failure, a voter can still be identified through the KIMS kit. The network story only comes in at stage 2, where you are doing the results transmission. And that's a discussion, I believe, which is in the agenda. But for the time being, the UDA position, the Kenya Kwanza position, is that identification of voters must have digital footprints, and we stick with the technology. No physical registers.
Jano.
Thank you, Chair. For record, we would like to say that we in Agano, and I myself as a presidential candidate, have no problem with electronic voter identification. We are speaking both from a party position, and for me it's experiential, as I'll explain in a short while. I've not heard the CEO say that the alphanumeric will not be available. I've heard, and maybe this can be corrected, that depending on the circumstances, yes, it will be looked into. And that should give anybody, it gives us comfort. The only area that would be of worry to us is what happened if there was no connectivity and things like that. And you have said that it will be able to work, and it works offline. You have said you've learned that from the 2017 mistakes, and you are no longer in that space. If I can backtrack a little, everything is going electronic. Even for those of us in any space, I'm in the legal profession, and any opportunity to do things electronically, we are running to it. It's the way to go, and there are a lot of quotes and sayings about electronic, including, and this has no reference to anyone here, that it's only a fool who would, given the two choices, who would not choose electronic. I have been a victim of the alphanumeric myself, particularly in the last election. If there is a system of, I know a colleague out there said, the print register has not been the problem, but for me it has a problem, and particularly in the year 2017. I was running for Senate in Lamu County, and everybody knew I had got that seat. Hata wale walikuwa wananipigia kura walikuwa wanasema, wakili, hiki kiti ni chako na hiki ni cha watu kama wewe. Uende kule kwa seneti, mkutane na Senator Amos wako, mawakili wenzako, Senator Orengo. But woe and behold, what happened from the alphanumeric in Pate, in Kiunga, you name it, in Boni, in those places where I couldn't reach. I woke up one day and I learned there are levels of rigging. Finally, but though there were also additional measures, like what has been referred as uchaguzi wa vifaranga, you know, where a senator who has a knack of fighting every woman who crosses his way got in instead of me. Finally, also I know that worked, but I'm saying if there is anything that cannot be abused. And this also has to do with identification cards. And my one of my colleagues here, we would just say a very quick vote. I think for us, we are saying, even the court is changing its own position. I must acknowledge, learned friend, Paul, I have not looked at the authority. You could have looked in between the lines. But I sense in another election, if there are holdings as to what you said, I don't think next time the court would hold what it has held in respect of it would uphold the rules you have referred to and sections as being sections that should bind the fact that the world is going electronic. So for us and for me, I want to say to you, this is the way things are going. No judge, no court in my respective submission, living in my generation, would not consider what an old English judge said, consider the circumstances, the political and the social, economic times of what we are living in, and come to a ruling that all things put on the level plane will make a ruling on the basis of electronic. It's a way to go. It will be easier. It's more verifiable. But let my colleague mention here another experience, and then we can move on to somebody else. Jane, please, if you may.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Jane Mudiga. I'm the organizing secretary for Agano. In the past, you've had cases whereby desperate candidates would go to the ground and maybe buy ID cards from some youth or the like, or sometimes you may have a voter who have lost an ID just a few days, a few weeks or something before the day of voting. So the CEO, maybe I would want some clarification on this, that when you talk about the use of electronic system, first preference, and in this preference, actually, the most important part is identification through the fingerprint. The fingerprint. That means that the first option is using the fingertips. And then the second option would be the biometric. We'd only go for complementary, where you need to produce the ID as the very last resort. So that means that you are assuring Kenyans that we could actually vote. You don't have to really, miss voting just because you don't have an ID. It's a clarification I want to get.
Thank you. I think a number of issues have been raised. Marjan and Professor, would you want to address some? Areas around possible manipulation of the register and the KIMS when you archive the data and other areas.
Thank you. Take up the issue of whether
You
could take up that issue of whether political parties could be allowed to observe the e-register that is being loaded onto the KIMS kit.
Thank you.
Maybe as you respond, you might want also to comment to the fact that there is an interim order against a commission that requires you to have the registers. And your lawyers came to court and said that the registers are ready and that they are there. And an interim order was saying that you must provide them on election day. Maybe you want to comment on the issue of compliance with that order.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The issues related to legal aspects of the register. Thank you very much for your questions and clarifications. Actually, for me, it means you are paying attention to what we are discussing. And so on the issues, matters legal, issues related to Section 69, Section 44, and the issue of the interim orders that we've just been advised. I think our legal counsel, Mr. Owie, is there. He will be in a position to address. Let me address the other issues that were raised in relation to use of KIMS kit. The first question was regarding the issue of SD cards. So the first question was on the issue of SD cards and whether the SD cards are actually encrypted or not. My answer to that question is yes. The SD card is the information that resides in the SD card is encrypted, and therefore, if the SD card is going to be lost, nobody can be able to access that information unless you have the decryption key. So then the information actually inside the SD card is actually secure. The other question is on the archiving of the voters who have already voted. Yes, the system basically automatically archives any person who has voted. And archiving does not mean deleting. Archiving means that you are marked that you have already voted. And therefore, this information, if we are even to avail it in the future, we can even tell you who has voted. The only thing we cannot be able to tell you who has voted for who. But in terms of who has voted, what is his age, what is his sex, what is the sex, and the rest, that information can be provided. How effective is the KIMS kit in identifying? How did it? I think we all know, and that we did not have any problem in 2017 in terms of identification. In fact, I want to confidently say that by 5, almost all the voters who had turned up the polling station had been identified. Maybe at that particular time we were also using a combination of the KIMS kit and the physical register, but in terms of identification, it worked very, very effectively. We never had any challenges, and in fact, you alluded to the fact that the problem is not even identification here. The problem is results transmission. That is what you said. So therefore, we did not have any challenge in as far as identification is basically concerned. Then the other issue was in the tender document, it was indicated that the technology will come with a mobile device management system. So is that mobile device management system there? My answer to that is yes. The mobile device management system is there, and you can be able to use it to poll all the devices that have actually been deployed for the purpose of this election. And we are ready to provide you with all the information regarding the kits that are going to be deployed. And therefore, you'll know which kits have actually been used for the purpose of identification. And not just identification, but also later on they are going to be used for the purpose of results transmission. Then the other issue is regarding, are they going to also be real-time? There's going to be real-time connectivity or not? I wanted to restate the fact that I said that for the purpose of identification, the KIMS kit is going to work offline. But remember, the KIMS kit also has got 2 SIM cards. The primary SIM card and the secondary SIM card, which is basically the backup. This KIMS kit, in order for the MDM to poll them, they must also be accessible to the device. And therefore, the MDM will be able to poll using the connectivity. And therefore, you are able now to poll and say, this device is actually working, it's actually at this particular place. And therefore, the KIMS kit, and I also stated before that the KIMS kit will be used to transmit the turnout at specific time. It cannot transmit when it's not connected. So it's going to be connected so that you can be able to poll and that you can be able to send some information regarding turnout. But in as far as identification is concerned, the KIMS kit is going to be used offline. Now there's a second question that basically followed that. Is the KIMS kit geo-fenced? And the other backup kits, are they geo-fenced? My answer to it is yes. Because at the opening of the polling station, whereby the information in the KIMS kit is going to be for a given sector beyond the polling station. At the opening of the polling station, you use a QR code to lock the polling station to the 700 voters who are actually in that polling station. And therefore, the information that is going to be used for the purpose of identification is going to be the 700 maximum, or the 200, or the 19, whoever has actually been is in that polling station. So the KIMS kit is going to lock itself. It is going to lock itself to the 700 voters for that specific polling station. And therefore, all identification will be going through the 700 or the number of the registered voters in that polling station. So that is how the KIMS kit is going to work. I think there was the issue of and also the backup kits. The backup kits also you also asked whether they are also going to be geofenced. My answer to is yes. Before you use them, still when you bring the backup kit and you insert the SD card, the SD card, you still also need to use the QR code to lock yourself to the same 700 voters. So you are not going to go away from that. You are going to use the 700 voters in that specific polling station. In terms of a gazetted, registered polling station, I think at some opportune time the Commission is going to gazette the number of voters in each and every polling station. That is going to be done. IBC, can IBC demonstrate what is being populated in the SD cards? I think this is something that the Commission can be able to deliberate upon and provide its direction on the same. But personally, as a person, I have no problem. I have no problem in stakeholders going to observe what is actually being done. Like I said, we have got a factory specifically for producing the KIMS kit. Even as we speak, there are people who are working there. We have not reached that stage of populating information into the duplicating the SD card. But if that is requested, I'm sure the commission actually, they are hearing and they can be able to provide direction with regard to that. I also wanted to, there was a question for me just to provide assurance that that everybody is going to vote if we are going to use this method. Yes, everybody is going to vote. Who is a legitimate voter is going to vote if we use the KIMS kit. So as long as you come with your identification documents and you present yourself there, because that is the only way we can be able to positively identify you. Like I said before, the default method is to use your biometrics, your fingerprints. But if it fails, you will still give us your identification document. We will take it, enter your ID number or your passport number into the KIMS kit, and it will retrieve your information. Once this information is retrieved, you can be able to see who is there. Remember also, there are people who don't have fingers. They don't have hands. So does it mean that they are not going to vote? They are going to vote because we are going to use that method to identify them. And once we identify, we can be able to see them. The picture is actually there, and therefore they will be allowed. They'll be allowed to vote. There was the issue of where there is no connectivity. What happens? I think we are going to talk about that in terms of results. But I wanted to let this meeting know that as a commission, we are not saying that the physical register should not be used. We are saying that if we are to use a physical register, it should be the last resort, whereby all the other methods have actually failed. And therefore, this should basically be the discussion. Thank you very much.
Yes. Sorry, I see the media is on this side. The case in the High Court is coming up on 18th of July for here in the parties hearing. But meanwhile, there are conservatory orders staying the decision of the Commission to use the digital, to use the physical. They'll use the digital register exclusively over the physical register. That's my understanding from Mr. Paul Mangi and Mr. Oye. What we shall do as we wait for the hearing and determination of that case is the Commission then will proceed with the ballot printing as well as printing the register for each polling station in terms of what we have in the KIMS kit as we await that determination of that case or further deliberations. I don't know who went to court, but I'm sure the lawyers then can advise on the way forward. Instead of us discussing here, because the matter's in court, I think we leave it that way for now. We shall print the register as we wait for other deliberations in court and or in other forms of discussions and settlement. I think that will be the way out for this matter. We can move on to the next item.
There is one aspect you have not still handled. The issue of whether you can allow accountability and verifiability of the content that is being loaded. Whether the Commission is open enough to allow political parties to observe the process of what is being loaded into the KIMS kit?
Yes, I got your question. I thought the CEO attempted to answer it. We have a factory where we are processing the KIMS kit. We can ask the presidential candidates to join me on a tour of that factory. You'll observe what's happening. We have not reached the stage where we are loading the data, but the kits have been prepared. And any time now, we can agree on a date when we can tour maybe with then we can be able to be on the same page. I think that would be good for transparency of the process. So, presidential candidates or their agents, that's yeah, we can work around that. Let's agree on that. But a very small number of maybe maximum 2 people from each side, because of the sensitivity of the process. So we are open to that. I think the team then, the CEO, can liaise with the good things that you are not many, so we can arrange this quickly. And you're all here. By the end of this session, we can agree.
Just on a related matter to that, the law mandates the Commission to set up a technology committee. I don't know when you are going to be setting that one up. I think a lot of the technical issues we are discussing will be thrashed out if you set up that technology committee and have stakeholders be part of it.
Okay. 2017, we had a committee and somebody went to court. And that provision of the law was declared unconstitutional. So that committee was ceased to exist. So we shall not have a committee with the stakeholders, but we are available to engage, and you work with us this journey. So we shall arrange that team by the end of today. We shall agree which date we are going to the factory, and we see the processes ongoing there. So thank you. Can we wrap this up?
Mr. Chairman, I just thought the neater way to wrap it up. What is being questioned is not identification, electronic identification. It's the issue of complementarity. So our ending note should be, it's quite clear that the primary method is electronic. The issue now left open for the court is the complementarity, so that we are clear and we move on. And we'll appreciate short, precise interventions, short, precise answers, so that we can finish.
Just one last thing, Mr. Chairman. It is on record that in 2017, 2.5 million voters were not identified through the KIMS kits. And those KIMS kits in 2017 were still new. We have been keeping them in storage for the last 5 years. We have already been told that 4,000 of them are defective. 4,000 out of 46,000 is a big percentage. So therefore, we really are not saying we are opposed to technology. In fact, we are not saying that technology should not be applied. But what should be noted also is that our elections are not 100% technology-based. Technology is a small part of this election. The rest of the election, by law and by practice, is actually manual. The casting of the vote is manual. And a big part of it is actually the casting of the ballot. So therefore, we are not saying we have a problem with technology at all. We also know, Mr. Chairman, that these gadgets...
Are we reopening the conversation again?
No.
On the
it's just to expand the areas of conversation. And, these gadgets will be used by human beings. They will not use themselves. And we have a concern, Mr. Chairman, concerning the personnel that has already been appointed by this commission. That concern was expressed by our presidential candidate in his letter to the commission on the 5th of this month. Mr. Chairman, we have noted some very worrying trends with ethnic imbalance of returning officers both at the county and at the constituency level. This country is a country of at least 50 ethnic groups. 50 ethnic groups. But we have noted that out of 47 county returning officers, nearly 10 are from one community. Out of 47.
Can I give some direction here?
Out of 200.
What you are raising now is a totally new issue, which we have no problem discussing, but I thought we need to move in a structured manner. Let's finish with the agenda of the day, then we can address that issue. And I remember addressing it in the correspondence between Asmio and ourselves. We can revisit it now and make clarity on it, but I suggest we finish the agenda of the day. Yes. Yeah, then we can deal with that.
But that's an issue we want to put on record today.
Yes, I have no problem with that. We are here for you. But let's just finish the issue of the results path, then we can take a note of, you can complete that line. Thank you. Yeah. Marjan, please proceed on the result path. Then if you have any other question, please hold it so that we can move in a structured manner. I agree that the primary identification is the biometric. The commission will prepare the registers because we don't have time to wait for the outcome of the court. We shall run out of time. The decision then to make is subject to the court judgment or ruling, whatever will come out, is whether to use the register in the manner we used 2017 or whether we shall have the register at the polling stations, and if it's required, if the KIMS kits fail, then the commission will have to make a decision whether to use it or not. I think those are areas we can revisit when the matter comes up in court. So, Marjan, proceed. I'm trying to move this meeting forward, and I know we have the ladies and gentlemen in this room, you want to run out and start seeing your voters out there, so we don't want to be here the whole day. Is it about the register?
Chairman, and I do apologize that I have to interrupt, but I appreciate the fact that you agree that you will prepare to have the manual register as a backup, as a secondary document, should the courts uphold and extend their current interim orders. But as we say that, we need to agree on what are the protocols. Because by the time you escalate to fall back on the secondary document, which is the manual register, it should be agreed that this will happen. All agents will have agreed. It's escalated to this level, and approval will come at this level. So it's just not there for you when people feel like it. There has to be protocols agreed here on that point. So I hope we'll work on that going forward. Thank you.
Yes, your comment is noted. Thank you.
I wanted somebody to project the...
And briefly, not much detail, just yeah.
Thank you very much. So, it's about the results part. So what normally will happen after voting has been done, counting has been completed, the results from 34A is going to be filled by the presiding officer after the counting, and this results is going to be confirmed by the agents. Once they confirm, then the returning officer, the presiding officer, and the agents will sign the Form 34A. After signing the Form 34A, the presiding officer will now launch the results transmission application, and after that, they will capture the image of the Form 34A and transmit the Form 34A to the National Tallying Center as well as the Constituency Tallying Center. And thereafter, the presiding officer will give copies of the Form 34As to all the agents. One copy is going to be pasted on the ballot box. One copy is going to be pasted at the door of the polling station. And after that, the presiding officer will then now move physically with the physical documents, that is the Form 34S, to the constituency tallying center. The constituency tallying center returning officer is going to receive the Form 34S, and of course, before that, we would have been in a position to access the images of what was scanned before and sent at the polling station. So through our backend system, the returning officer is in a position to access the images of the Form 34S for the respective constituency. The returning officer, even as they are waiting for the physical copies to come, they will basically populate the information using the image to the Form 34B. Form 34B is a collation of all the Form 34As. Once all the polling stations have been populated, we will use now the physical copy to verify, again, entry one by one. The physical copies received will be used to verify all entries in each and every polling station in presence of the political party agents. Once that one now is done, then the agents again will sign the Form 34B plus the returning officer and the deputy returning officer. Then from there, the physical copies again will be taken by the returning officer to the National Tallying Center returning officer, who is the chairman. And I wanted to just state maybe what is going to happen at the tallying center. We will have of course, when the presiding officers goes to the constituency tallying center, they will go with 6 ballot boxes, presidential, governor, and the rest. So it will be expected that he will have to work and make sure that all those announcements are basically made for each and every polling station, because the returning officer for each and every polling station results come, he must be able to announce that. And therefore, he will be expected to announce all of them. But because of the importance of the presidential results, this time that's why we have recruited two deputy returning officers. So the returning officer can now be relieved to take the physical copies to the national returning officer. And the national returning officer also will be in a position to access the scanned image of the Form 34S. And also, if they want, they can be able to start preparing their Form 34C. But I suffice to say that Form 34B is the soft copy will also be scanned and also be transmitted to our backend servers. And therefore, what is going to be available for the purpose of public and for the purpose of stakeholders is going to be the scanned copies of Form 34S as well as Form 34Bs. And at the National Tallying Center, they will be handing over and taking over of the physical forms that have been received from the returning officers. The chairman and of course his team, they will actually use the Form 34Bs that have been brought to them to verify all the entries of the polling stations using the physical Form 34S. And after verifying all of them, they will now be able to prepare Form 34C. Of course, as they do that, they pay attention to any errors that may actually occur. These errors are going to be recorded in error collection form, and this report is also going to be presented. In essence, the National Returning Officer must satisfy himself that all the entries in the Form 34Cs have been physically verified by the Form 34S, and that the agents present are also going to validate the same. And finally, then the Form 34C is going to be signed by the National Returning Officer as well as the political party agents. It's only after that then the chairman can be able to declare who is the winner. Suppose there is no winner because no one has met the 50% plus 1 margin and the 25% of the majority county, then it means that a runoff is going to be there, and the chairman is going to declare accordingly that in the next 30 days, then there's going to be a runoff. So that's a simple projection in terms of how the results is going to be sent from one point to the other. Thank you very much.
In all this, what we are saying as a commission is that all the presidential candidates, we are encouraged to have agents in all polling stations. Your agents will have copies of the results. Please train your agents. Find a way of also doing your own tabulations. We also had a meeting with the media. A fraternity will be deployed in the 290 constituencies for purpose of transparency. The results belong to the people of Kenya. And the commission will do its part, ensure that all the results are transmitted. There will be a public portal for the media, for the transmitted scanned copies of the forms. The images of the forms arriving at the National Tallying Center will be verified against the physical copies. Before then, the commission prepares that 4C. So all those measures form part of the results path. So let's now have your input, comments, starting with the smear. Then we move to Uda. Gano, if you have anything, and Roots Party in that order. Thank you.
I think you'll allow me to cover a few points, all related and very, very fast. One of them is the issue of agents. The perennial complaint in every petition, whether presidential or gubernatorial, like I participated in, is kicking out of the agents by your presiding officers. So to enhance transparency, we are proposing that you not only release the identification badges for agents to candidates 2 days before, but that identification plus the oath are the only thing an agent needs to get access, and your officers must not have any authority to send out an agent unless if an agent commits a criminal offense, in which case the police at that polling station will have recorded that incident. I want to agree with your proposal that agents should sign. Therefore, the presence of the agent, unless if they have committed a criminal offense and the party is at liberty to replace, the signing of the result form, that 4A, and in all other elections by the agents, ought to be mandatory, and your form should have a column for the agent to say, I agree or disagree with the results. We also want, it's good you are transmitting the results. You have promised us copies, but you've been printing only 6 copies of the form, 4 of which are for use by the commission. As you can see in this presidential election, we are 4 presidential candidates. Therefore, 2 copies are not enough. We don't want to ask you to print more copies and incur more money for the government. We just want the right as agents to be able to take WhatsApp images of the form once it is ready. That way, whatever you transmit electronically cannot have vifaranga via computer, because the form will be out, everybody will have it, and the press, if they are in the room, will also have it. The gap on announcing what is tallied at the station should be removed. When either the press or other people say how many votes were garnered, and they are on that form, they are not making the official announcement. They are giving the provision. They just say, this is what we witnessed. That enhances transparency. So 2 things. Your officers must not have the right to send out agents unless if there is an incident recorded by the police and the party has a right to replace. Number 2, WhatsApp images. Those who are able to have smartphones, and I'm certain that in every room there will be at least 1 or 2 people with a smartphone. We must take WhatsApp images. The story of the Faranga via computer will die at that stage, and that will enhance the transparency of the elections, which is ordered or commanded by Article 86 of the Constitution. On the door. Oh, sorry, only one point. I'm being reminded by my principal that the order of counting in every polling station, it should be clear that they start with the presidential ballot. They don't always do so. I've been at polling stations where it is not done that way. So let the commission be clear. And finally, people commit deliberate electoral offenses. That is employees of the commission, and they hide behind the word commission. We want to request you to unequivocally and publicly tell your officers that anybody who violates the electoral code deliberately will face the law individually. Last year I tried to privately prosecute 3 of your officers. Now that we are busy in elections, I may drop the appeal, but we need them to know that it is personal responsibility. The elephant called the commission must be dissected to that polling clerk, to that candidate, to everybody. Thank you. So that we don't come back, I'm being reminded that I think the audit report had already been asked in the previous by our competition in UDA, and I think we are in agreement that yes, we need the audit report by KPMG, but that now can also be bared to us as we inspect your factory.
Thank you. UDA.
Thank you, Chair. On the 9th of June, when you invited party representatives, candidates, and the agents to simulate the electronic transmission, result transmission system, the stakeholders pointed quite a number of shortcomings on that system that was presented to us. Number 1, it was not user-friendly. We asked you to make it user-friendly. And the second, there were also a number of other bottlenecks, particularly transmission and the time it was taking for information to be transmitted from a polling station to you. I think we would like to know what effort has been made, or whether you're going to be doing another simulation that includes the comments we had made. Second, we fully embrace the system of the results forms pathway that you have presented. The bigger concern is on the transmission of the results from the polling station direct to the National Tally Center. And we will ask the Commission to share with the chief agents the GPS coordinates of all the KIMS kits. I think it's critical so that we can know it is actually the KIMS kit that was deployed to that polling station that is transmitting, but also provide a backup access to chief agents so that they are able to confirm the GPS of the KIMS kits as they transmit the results. We will also want you to make assurance not only to us but also to the public on the public that the public portal will be accessible even when many Kenyans are logging in. I think we need that assurance that information will be available at any particular time. And of course, I know the Commission has asked parties to have one agent in a polling station. we are asking you allow candidates, candidates also that are going to be in this election to be able to have agents to represent them in the various polling stations where voters will be voting. Thank you. Unless my colleagues wants to add, I think Dr. Linda Musumba is head of legal in Presidential Secretariat.
Chair, I don't know whether you can hear me, but during the 2017 petition, the question arose about the presidential, ballots, being more than the others, and then the issue arose that people are preferring to vote for the president rather than the others. But the question arose, what happens to the other five?
Say that again. There's a bit of noise here.
Sorry, Chair, I was asking, during the 27th presidential election petition, the question arose, what happens to the other 5 ballot papers where a person does not wish to vote for the president? And the commission, through that process, explained that each ballot paper, even if one elects not to mark it, ought to put it inside the different ballot boxes. So we just wanted to know the accountability mechanism that the commission has put in place to ensure that if we're going to get 2,000, let's say, votes in a ballot box for presidential, that we shall get the same number in the others, so that we don't have a situation where ballot papers in the presidential are many more than in the other boxes. We just wanted that accountability mechanism to be explained. Thank you.
Yes, now on the, let's finish with Uda. You are done. I'll go to Agano. Then I see Asmia is not done yet. But let's finish with Agano first. Yeah.
Asanti mwenyekiti, yangu tu ni kuongezea yale yamesemwa na wenzangu na kusema hivi, ningependa kuomba commission ya kwamba muongezee matangazo ya kuwaelimisha Wakenya kuhusu haki zao kwa polling station. Ni ukweli wa kwamba returning officer hawa wenyu hata hao wanariki kushinda wengine wote. They confuse people. They act like they are small gods. And if you don't have an agent, you are at their mercy in the particular place. Na kaza kama mimi sijui kama nitaweza kupata maagent kote, Madera na kwingineko. Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa ya kuandika maagent popote. And I have seen them do these things. But let me finish my point. Let me stick to the point.
Let's have some decorum in the meeting.
No. Yeah, yes, I'm talking the truth. Please run more campaigns, please, on educating on their rights. I agree with the honorable running mate. Allow people to use electronic gadgets to capture what's happening, because there is a lot of abuse that goes on there. And one more point from us, Bishop, very quickly.
We want to seek leave, attend to other matters, but we have a very robust team behind us. We apologize for leaving before the end. But duty call.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just direct to the point. CEO has just told us that every Kenyan who is legitimate to vote has right to vote. I don't know what arrangements are in place regards the people who are likely to be in the hospital and possibly they are not fully incapacitated. Others are aged at home. What are the arrangements to have them receive their legal right to vote? Thank you.
Yes, we want to deal with those comments.
Mr. Chair.
Is it about the results?
Yes.
Yes, transmission. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, you talk about 1,111 polling stations. Mr. Chair, you talked about 1,111 polling stations that do not have connectivity to 3G. What methodology are you going to use to have access to all these polling stations? The second issue is the issue of the transmitted images. They will be stored in your servers, and you said you will have an access to a portal. Are you going to allow us to have an API access to that portal? And are we able to get it maybe 2 to 3 weeks prior for purpose of integration? The third issue is the issue of the transmission that has been raised earlier. Is that the process wasn't as successful, the simulation. Are you able to give us, number one, that the same can be redone again? Number two, whether the same can be commenced where all the police stations are tested so that we are able to successfully stress test the entire infrastructure. Thirdly, in the 2017 elections, there was the issue of the servers. Are we having our data stored locally, or is it being hosted outside? And if it is stored locally, how certain are we that the entire transmission from the entire 46,000 polling station will be successful? Additionally, Mr. Chair, just on the earlier issue of the KIMS kit, you did transfer from the old infrastructure provider to a new service provider with the Smartmatics. How certain are we that the entire data that was originally stored by the earlier service provider has been transferred? This in regard to the biometrics data. That information has it that it was not successfully done and was not successfully ported. And in that issue, if it was successfully ported, are you able to provide us a data destruction certificate from the earlier service provider, guaranteeing that the entire data that was originally stored by them has been destroyed so that the new service provider has access to them? And finally, Mr. Chair, the data will be transmitted from each of the polling stations through a secure connection. How secure is the entire connection? Because earlier the CEO alluded to the fact that the transmission or each of the KIMS kit will remain offline until the time of connection. So technically, any KIMS kit can be able to transmit, because technically it means that if the KIMS kit are not necessarily online, the issue of geofencing is not there. The CEO talked about each of the KIMS kit will be geofenced. That is not the case, because what is geofenced technically is the SD card, but not the actual hardware, which should be restricted to operate within a given area. So what you have locked within each of the polling station is the SD card, but not the actual hardware that we expect should be locked. Because if you don't lock the specific hardware, we have information that about 4,000 KIMS kit are lost. So technically you're saying that anybody can walk in with any KIMS kit and be able to have access to the same. So provide us that update at least so that we're able to be sure of that. Then finally, the connectivity issue, Mr. Chair. Just for a second. We are saying that each of this polling center will provide an image. I mean, the capability of each of these network transmitting more than 24 GB of data within any given time, owing to the fact that every one of them will transmit data at one given hour will be impossible. In the last 2017 election, the biggest challenge was that the data was transmitted at the given time and was text data. This time it will be image data. So if our infrastructure cannot have the capability to host this data on real time, we'll have a serious crisis. There's a possibility that your data centers will not support this capacity, and we would like the same done with an actual testing. If the last testing wasn't successful, can you show us by a demonstrable test that is actually going to work? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lastly, Roots Party.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for hosting us and the other presidential candidates. We would like to appreciate what you have always done. You have, as you mentioned, an open door policy, you and your commissioners. Thank you for all listening to our concerns. But for now, my presidential candidate and myself would request leave. We were here the first ones in the morning. We've just started our campaigns and we would like to attend to other matters. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask Professor, you and the CEO and anybody from the technical team to make comments on the issues that have been raised. But just suffice to say that at every polling station we shall have sufficient result forms for all the agents of presidential candidates who will be in attendance. Yeah, only 4 presidential candidates and 4 forms will be available. WhatsApp images of the results, we have no problem with that. Tabulate your results, come to the National Tallying Center with your results, so that we compare what we have and what you have. That's what we are saying for transparency purposes. So Professor Marjan.
At least I'm safe. Please. There are a number of issues. I will only respond to some. I will leave others for my colleagues, including the CEO. The starting point is the issue of kicking out of PO, of agents by POs. We had discussion with our staff yesterday. As you may be aware, we have all our national staff undergoing a planning meeting as we speak in Bomas, planning for the election. And one of the things, one of the discussions we had was about agents. It is not the intention of the policy to kick out any agent of any political party or candidate. And if the allegations of agents being kicked out, then the commission needs to be alerted, the presiding officer needs to be alerted, the county election manager needs to be alerted so that action is taken against those POs. The issue of agents signing results form, it is provided for in the regulations. Agents will sign the results form, but from experience, we know some agents of some candidates, when their candidates are not winning, they don't want to sign the form. And the law envisages that not signing by an agent of the result form does not nullify the result. I think we should be clear on that as well. The issue of agents taking pictures of the forms, I think we discourage pictures in the polling stations because we want to preserve the sanctity and the privacy of the voter. And if this can be done in a manner that does not expose, then the commission can have deliberations with stakeholders and see how that can be provided in terms of just taking an image of the result. We can discuss how we can do it. I don't know whether the legal team of IEBC will be in agreement, but I think we can discuss that. Okay? Result transmission simulation challenges. I don't know, somebody has a hand up and I'm still responding.
Thank you. Just one interjection. I think the issue of saying that we cannot have cameras in the polling station because you want to respect the sanctity of the secret vote. Nobody is taking pictures in the booth where the person is. That is where it's not allowed. But in terms of taking the result form or taking a video of the returning officer making the announcement, I think we are permitted to do that.
I thought I said we will sit with you guys and agree on a protocol. Is that a problem? Okay? I didn't say otherwise. Okay? In terms of results simulation, of course, it was a simulation, and a simulation is to test. And when you test, it can either pass or not pass. We did a simulation. There were a few challenges. One of the main challenges was that all our MNOs, mobile network operators, were not on board. They had some logistics in terms of moving some of the kits to the far distant counties where the testing was to, result transmission was to happen. So we had a few challenges, and we had internally said we will redo it again. And so when we are having learned lessons from that, the challenges that we had. So we will advise you accordingly. Now, yes, the GPS coordinates of all polling stations will be shared with political parties. We actually gave GPS coordinates to the Communication Authority, and that is how they mapped out polling stations or polling centers that are outside 3G coverage areas. So this can be shared with political parties. Public portal accessibility, I will leave to Marjan to address that. In terms of agents, one agent per party not being enough. We have classrooms as our polling stations. And you know our primary schools, how small the classrooms are. We have elective positions where, for example, in MCA, in the last election, in the range of 40 candidates. Just one elective position. And we have a huge number of independent candidates. So if each candidate is to have an agent, that classroom will be congested. Again, we need to have a discussion on how to better manage the agenting process so that the poll officials and the agents can be accommodated in the classrooms that we have. It is not our intention to shut out anybody's agent, but we need to operate within the spaces that we use as polling stations. Now, the question was asked, how do we ensure the 6 ballot papers that you give to a voter is accounted for? It is the Commission's desire that ballot papers issued to a voter are all placed in respective ballot boxes. We've even made it easier to match the color of the ballot paper with the lid of the ballot box. And this is for purposes of ensuring that the voters are guided. And part of our trainings is to ask our presiding officers to ensure that ballot papers issued are put in respective boxes. If you don't want any candidate, leave it blank, but put in the respective ballot box. But sometimes the reason earlier on when we were discussing the issue of the register, the reason why we are saying putting more emphasis on the digital register is because when there is this manual register, if in that particular locality is a stronghold of a particular, for example, presidential candidate, and if they cannot agree on the other 6, at least they agree on a presidential candidate. So in that respect, they may issue ballot papers of a presidential candidate and put in the presidential ballot box. And they may not bother with the others. So this sometimes makes a disparity between the figures of voters for presidential and the other candidates. And hence, it's part of the reasons why we are saying, let's have more on the digital. Our focus should be more on the digital register than the ballot, the physical ballot register of voters. So we will train, it's a matter for training, we will train our presiding officers to ensure that the 6 ballot papers issued to a voter are all accounted for in the different ballot boxes. There were issues about somebody asking people in hospitals their right to vote. I think there is so much the Commission can do. We have designated, gazetted polling stations. We cannot convert every hospital bed to be a polling station. And we have no capacity to bring every 6 patient in a hospital to come to a ballot, to come and vote in a polling station. It is a shared responsibility. As Kenyans, if you have relatives, friends that are able, that can be taken to vote, we will be more than happy to welcome them to the polling station and to facilitate their voting. Reference was made to the 1,111 polling centers with no 3G and perhaps what arrangements we are doing. We've had similar incidents in 2017, and as I've always responded to on this matter, funds allowing, we will deploy satellite modems to ensure that we have coverage in terms of network connectivity in those areas to facilitate transmission of the image of the result forms. In terms of API access, I will leave it to Marjan. You can deal with that. And also handle that together with the stress test for simulation in terms of the digital images that comes to our servers. On the cloud storage, is it locally? We are not using any cloud storage this time. We are using our resources within the territory of Kenya. We are not outside the country. And so, in the event that there will be a cloud, it will be a cloud within the Kenyan space. But for now, our focus is on the infrastructure that we have deployed to be used within the country in terms of the primary and secondary data centers that we have in the country. The issue of all data in MOFO and the transmission of data from one service provider to the other, you can, Marjan, address that. As well as the geofencing of kits. Of course, geofencing, as you rightly put it, can only happen once they are online. But the beauty with the kit is that once it gets locked to that particular station, it cannot be used for another station. And because there is also a SIM, and if this SIM is active, we also need the kit to transmit voter turnout data at intervals of 2-3 hours. So ideally, the kit should be connected to enable that transmission of that data. But for purposes of the register, we already preload it and we do not need connectivity to access details of voters in terms of identification. So I think I'll invite Marjan to finish off the remaining questions. Thank you very much.
Question of presidential ballot. Regulation 83 requires that, the Regulation 83 requires that the presidential term is announced first.
That's the rule. But then there is the issue of when all the presidential candidates will be speaking list and yet then in some cases there have been problems with the parties that are
Mr. Chairman, the issue of the counting of the votes, I think the regulations are very clear. It starts with presidential ballot box first.
Okay.
And so that is not in dispute. It's already part of our training program.
For joining us.
Now, for purposes of
this session on youth as partners in Black Service. My name is Rebecca Nyankia. I work with the National AIDS Control Council. I am the program officer for adolescents and young people. So really, young people are very close.
What is happening?
This session is on youth, as I said, youth as partners in Black Services. And I'd like, I don't know about you, but myself, when I was 18 or 15 or in campus, I was obviously not.
We have been overrun. Is it a technology failure?
I understand why it's an important conversation for us to have.
Complementary.
So I think it's important for us to figure out how to engage young people more and how to make this an important cause for them, given that they're the largest number.
But anyway, if a ballot paper,
for that reason,
if a ballot is cast in the wrong ballot box,
we also have some people joining us.
We will not transfer it to the right ballot box. And I think, Owie, you can correct me. It is a spoiled.
So when we get into the
stray ballot paper. If it is a stray ballot paper, it is not counted as a valid vote.
The purpose of this session
and that is the procedures that we have. Okay? It's already taken care of in terms of our training. In fact, we have spoiled,
so the purpose of this session is that
rejected,
young people, what are some of the challenges that they face in terms of
you may want to come and elaborate on that, Owie.
How this can be a relevant conversation for them as
I'll
well.
give you a chance to elaborate on that. But if a ballot paper is not in its rightful box, then it's not counted as a validly cast ballot paper. Okay? I don't know if Ben, Prof, answers. Okay. Marjan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something before my Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the session. And I just want to note that obviously it's a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the process is credible and believable. And I just wanted to raise the issue of procurement. And that concerns procurement of the printing. We want some more information about where the printing is being done, who is doing it, what company is responsible, and perhaps the ownership of that company. And secondly, the question of procurement of technology. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, you can hear me now. I'll stand up. I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that we appreciate the process of this conversation. Obviously, we appreciate that the election is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the electoral process is credible. And one area that concerns us is the question of the printing of the ballot paper. We want to know who is printing the ballot papers, where they are being printed, and we want to make sure that their custody is secure, and we want to make sure that you can assure us how that security will be given to the ballot papers. It will be important for us also to know who owns the company that is printing the ballot papers. Secondly, it's a question of technology. We understand that Smartmatic is a company that is registered somewhere in Panama is providing the technology. We'd like to know, again, ownership of the company, the connections with the company that people in this country may or may not have, so that we can be sure that the procurement process is transparent. I think you'll appreciate our concern on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What I would like us to do, Prof, what I suggest we do is let Marjan complete the first set of questions, and then I will invite you, Professor, Chair of the Election Operations Committee, together with the two commissioners, Justice Nyangaya and Commissioner Masit, recently traveled with a team to the company where ballot papers are being printed. I think then you can share some insight on that after Marjan is done.
Okay. Thank you. Marjan, before Marjan, we come. Well, you want to read from there? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity. But I would like to pass the same to our ICT director. We have got a technical director, ICT, who is here. And I would want him to address himself with the issues that have been asked technically. So please, Mike, come forth and deal with the issues that have been raised.
Good afternoon. I'll go through the technical questions that were asked. The first one, simulation, that there were some issues raised in the last meeting. It was not user-friendly. Have we addressed? The answer is yes. We've been working with the vendor since 9th to improve on some of the features. For example, it was not clear in each county, in each constituency, how many results had been received so far. That will become more clear in the new version we are working on. Number 2, assurance that the public portal will be accessible. I wish to confirm again, it will be on the public internet, accessible to the media, observers, and the general public. In addition, we are working on the API. Someone asked when you'll have access. We understand you need time for integration of the API. We are working on this, and from next week, we're going to start engaging with the technical representative of all the major political parties, the presidential candidates, so that they understand the technology we are using. We work together on technical issues like API, so that they are ready as well to prepare themselves. As the chairman said, if they want to do their own parallel tallying. I've answered on API. Data migration. There was a question on what assurance that we've migrated and deleted data from the previous vendor after migration to the new vendor. The fact is, we have not deleted data from the previous vendor because that data remains reference. We do not want to delete its reference and will be retained until we maybe at least 3 years, because it is a reference data that we paid for. So there's no need to give you evidence of deletion. We have not deleted it. We still keep it as reference. But the entire register, as at that time of 19.8, has been migrated to the new vendor In addition, we added about 2.5 or so million voters registered through ECVR 1 and 2 and deleted dead voters and people who had registered with fake documents. And as the chairman announced, the register now stands at 22.1 million voters after all that is done. The last is geofencing. Geofencing of the tablets. Geofencing means the tablet is marked to only operate from a certain point using satellite technology to mark where it is at any single point. There's a debate on what to do. Do you geofence because it consumes a lot of power? Do you geofence and use so much power that you cannot, as a result, work with the kit the entire day, transmit result, transmit logs? Most of these kits, we expect them to work for at least, I think, 12 hours. So we decided to select that instead of geofencing, we keep entire serial numbers of all the kits, and we assign each kit to a specific polling station. This data will be shared with all the political parties before the elections, so that you are able to verify post-election or during the polling that the same kit that was used, the same kit that we shared is in a specific polling station is where it's supposed to be. I realized your concern here was that you are saying 4,000 kits have been lost and can be used to transmit spurious results. This cannot happen. In the security we have deployed in the new system, and indeed even in 2017. Before, in the production facility that you are going to visit, you are going to see that the servers that will receive results will be pre-configured to know which kits can transmit result, and only those kits which it knows can transmit. Nobody else can install that software because they do not have access to that software, and that software is the only software that can transmit results. That will address your concern that there are 4,000 kits that are somewhere which can transmit results. Secondly, I wish also to clarify that we've not lost 4,000 kits. We bought 45,000 kits in 2017. We have tested all of them. About 41,000 of them are working. 3,000 are not working, and they are available for you to see. They are not lost. Hopefully I've addressed all the technical questions that were asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Prof, the issue of the ballot.
Thank you, Chair. The ballot paper printing farm. Professor Mutua wants to know more about it. We also wanted to know more about it as commissioners because we are not involved in the procurement process, as you may know, as commissioners. And therefore, the commission directed that my committee go and inspect and see and quality assure on behalf of the commission and the people of Kenya that we have the right firm doing the printing of ballot papers and other statutory forms for us. I went with Commissioner Nyangaya. Maybe you stand up wherever you are. I also went with Commissioner Masit. And so the 3 of us, and we had 2 technical staff accompanying us, one from the Directorate of Voter Registration and Election Operations, and another staff from the Directorate of Procurement and Supply Chain Management. The company that has been given or awarded this contract is Inform Lycos. This is a company owned by a Greek national. It's a company that has been in security printing business since 1897. It is listed in Athens Stock Exchange since 1994. It has a strong European business footprint. It does print works for a number of countries in Europe. In addition, it does work for you in UK and also in US. It also does work for institutions and business companies in Middle East and also in Africa. They have 6 production facilities, and these facilities are spread across 3 European countries. We managed to visit 2 of the countries. We visited the main production facility in Athens. We also visited the other production facility in Romania. It employs over 1,400 people. The company produces, or rather majors in financial, does work for financial institutions in a number of European countries, UK and US. They do a lot of digital printing. They do security printing. They are involved in digital transformations. And they also do distribution services. The company is ISO 14298 certified. It is ISO 9001 certified. It is ISO 14001 certified. It is ISO 2701 certified. It is ISO 4501 certified. And it is ISO 30301 certified. It has various certifications for various activities, including security printing certifications. As a commission, we were interested in their preparation. As of the time we visited, which is I think slightly or less than a month ago, it had procured over 31 tons of UV dull security paper with custom-made watermark as per IEBC requirements. And what they procured is almost 75% of the requirements for the entire printing of the poll materials that we require for the election. The remaining 25% was in another facility which they get their raw materials from in Italy, and it was ready for shipment as and when they are asked to bring over. They had procured 100% of customization inks required, which were majorly 3 different types of inks, and they had required 100% of what was required for the entire print works. So in terms of capacity, we are very confident that they have the capacity to deliver. I was in the committee that was overseeing print works in 2017 for the ballot papers. I visited Al Ghurair severally then, and having had the opportunity to visit this time, this particular farm, I can confidently say they have twice the capacity of Al Ghurair. In fact, more than twice the capacity. The main production facility will be in Athens, but they have a redundancy parallel site in Romania which has identical equipments. The same equipments in Athens are the same equipments in Romania. And that can be used as a backup site in the event of any disaster happening in Athens. So as a commission, we are completely satisfied with their choice. They have the capacity. They are involved in businesses far more than the little contract we have given them. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are listed in the Athens Stock Exchange, and I don't think they will be doing any monkey business to jeopardize their vast business interests they have in several continents. And so that's the assurance we can give, Professor Makau Mutua. If there is anything else you want, we can ask you to go and see for yourself if you can pay your ticket. We were not even allowed to carry our let alone cameras, even our phones into the production facility. Whereas in Al Ghurair, we used to roam with our phones. So they are far more serious, and we believe we have made the right choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I want to give way forward to this meeting. I recognize the presence of the UDA presidential candidate and the chief agent. You are ably represented. Is it a question on ballot paper? Prof, so you don't move, so stay there. I just want to say that the technical team will actually be arranging a meeting with the technical teams from the 4 presidential candidates on the issues of technology and the station of corporate. So that is being done, and also other issues which we may not exhaust here today, then can be discussed in the follow-up meeting next week. We may not be able to exhaust everything, and because we also understand other schedules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now the team that did visit Greece and Romania check all this preparation. What you say gives us with a lot of confidence. However, we cannot ignore history. This is the farm that in 2019 was linked to the postponement of elections in Nigeria because they were unable to deliver on time. So they might have all those security features. What guarantee did they give you? Because in Kenya, you understand the impatience we normally have when the station is not open for 2 hours. So if we have to postpone this election even by a day, imagine the kind of crisis we're dealing with in this country. Did you ask them about that particular occurrence? What guarantee do they give you that we'll have this delivered in time?
Thank you. First of all, we asked the same question. You watched Nigeria elections. Why should we trust you? The first thing they told us was they were never contracted to do the Nigeria election. The truth of the matter was the Nigerian Electoral Commission contracted a local contractor who subcontracted a Chinese firm to do the ballot paper. The Chinese firm failed to deliver. and they were only contacted at the 11th hour to help them to print the ballot papers that were used in the finally in the election. So they were not the people who were contracted, who made the election to be postponed. I hope I'm clear, because we asked the same question. The other thing that probably I want to talk about, which I think it was part of the questions that Azimio had forwarded, and by Chairman Azimio is cleverly sneaking in their questions instead of waiting for a formal response in this forum. I didn't want to stop you from entertaining them, but one of the things is about the security features of the election ballot papers. I sometimes joke with my colleagues from other EMBs in the African continent that our ballot paper, the Kenyan election ballot paper, has more security features than some monetary currencies of some African countries. We have 8 security features on our ballot paper. If you want the details, some are visible by the eye, others are invisible. Some you need an extra magnifying lens to see. Some you need, the UV lights to see. So there are all manner of security features which we can discuss with you, with your teams when you visit us. So our ballot paper, in short, is secure. If you want more details, we'll share with you when we meet the groups, especially when you are going for the factory visit. We can have a discussions around the exact features. We are also cautious not to kuanika nje alafu mnaenda kwa mahali ngine mkatengeza vitu zetu, sivyo?
Thank you, Prof. As to give closing remarks. I'm aware there are many issues, but we can't exhaust them today. My proposal is that each of the candidates, presidential candidates, should have a technical staff of 2 to meet with our technical staff and deal with the issues that we have not covered here. Number 2, I received a letter from Asmio yesterday. We are going to respond to each and every issue we have raised. And also, because there are matters of public concern, we shall share that with the rest of the candidates and the Kenyans at large. And so, we cannot exhaust this meeting issues today. Yes. I'll give each team a chance to say something, but go ahead.
You had given us an assurance, Chair, that you will give us an opportunity to raise the issue of the personnel of the Commission. So if, Chair, you could allow me, all these things we are talking about, this exercise will have a human element. The Commission has already recruited returning officers both for the county and for the constituencies. It has also deputy returning officer for the constituencies. Chair, we have noted with concern that there is a great tribal imbalance, ethnic imbalance in the composition of those returning officers. If you want the details, Chair, Kenya is a country that is made up of at least 50 communities, diverse communities. But when it comes to the returning officers at the county level, nearly 10, because there are 8 are from one community. And that community has a presidential candidate in this election. By comparison, the next community that has a candidate in this election at the top level only has 4 returning officers at the county level. Chair, we have also noted that At the constituency level, when it comes to returning officers and deputy returning officers, we are talking about 290 plus 290, 580. Out of 580 key personnel at the constituency level, we have nearly 100 from one community. I have the figures.
Can we answer?
Yes, I have the figures. I have the data. I have compared, even with the strength of these communities when it comes to the population of the country. What I'm talking about that is leading is not the community that is leading in terms of the general population, but yet in every aspect they have at least double the number of personnel. Chair, you will note that these returning officers are the ones who are recruiting the actual personnel that will conduct this election at the polling station level. That is the real theater of operations for this election. And therefore, if we have...
We have understood you.
Yes. And lastly, on the same issue, we are already receiving complaints. We are already receiving complaints from some of these places where these officers are deployed. We're talking about Kisi, we're talking about Busia, we're talking about Bungoma. We are receiving complaints from the ground that the recruitment of presiding officers is not going, is going in a very skewed way. And therefore, kindly address that. These concerns will be followed by a written document. Thank you very much.
So, do you wait for the written or?
You can respond.
Yeah.
We will still follow it because I've not expressed everything that there is to express.
Right, thank you. Prof, you want to say something? But as Professor speaks, I don't think there's any institution in this which has the face of Kenya as her. But Prof, go on with it. And right now we have officers in Bomas. The face of Kenya is in Bomas. But Professor...
Thank you, Chair. The reason why we said we wanted to meet in camera is because some people get excited with camera. This is to politicize this
unless
function.
You want to give me a right to respond.
Excuse me, you have asked a question, I will have a right to respond.
Do not attack my character. I'm here, I can defend myself.
I want to respond to the question in my own manner. Okay?
Some order, please.
IBC recruits personnel in this manner. When there is a constituency position, the recruitment is locked to the constituency. There are 290 constituencies in Kenya, which therefore means recruitment is based at the constituency level. The DRO, the Deputy Returning Officer, the Returning Officer are both recruited and their ID must read they come from born and brought up in, or born in that constituency. This is to ensure we have the face of Kenya in the commission. When we have a county position, because we devolved our functions in 2017 when we came to office ourselves, we started the county manager position. The first criteria for employing somebody as a county manager or a county accountant or a county ICT or county supply chain is your ID must read that county. The commission has moved away from using temporary returning officers more than a decade ago. For anyone to insinuate we have just recruited a ROS based on skewed tribal affiliation is misleading and wrong. We recruited our staff, some of them as far back as 2012. They are all permanent and pensionable staff of the commission. In 2017, when there were by-elections all over, the commission had a disciplinary process, having called all returning officers that had issues in their constituencies. We dealt with them. And the reason why we moved away from temporary arrows is because we want people who are on permanent and pensionable terms, who in the event something happens, they have a lot more to lose than just the 2-3 months they are hired. If you go to Bomas of Kenya today, there are 890 personnel of IEBC on full permanent and pensionable terms. They are the ones who are going to oversee the election. They oversaw the election in 2017 and in 2013. Let's not politicize the staff of IEBC. We are only recruiting temporary deputy constituency returning officer, one position. We have a permanent returning officer on permanent and pensionable terms, recruited in the manner I described earlier. And we have a permanent and pensionable deputy returning officer. So we are having an additional one that is temporary, so that we have in every constituency one returning officer and 2 deputy returning officers, one of them being temporary. And the temporary returning officer deals mostly with only logistical arrangements and not results. At the county level, we have a full-time permanent and pensionable county returning officer. What we have only done is to give him one temporary assistant to help him in the process. But at his disposal is a county ICT, a county accountant, and a county supply chain. So the issue of tribalizing IEBC or balkanizing into one of the 43 ethnic tribes does not arise. We are not a tribal institution. We are a national institution undertaking a national mandate. And our focus is purely on that. If you have a problem with any postings and you have an individual case, please come and see the chairman and say, I have an issue here. And we will deal with it. But criminalizing and giving an impression that the commission is only serving one ethnic group or ethnicity is wrong. We will not entertain that kind of, judgments by anyone. Our staff, we will defend them as much as it has to be, because we want them to be nationalists and to serve this country regardless of where they are posted and whom they will be serving. Thank you, Chair.
All the tribes of Kenya work for this, including the smallest tribe. So, if you have any data to the contrary, share with me. There was a hand here. Your issue being addressed. Yes,
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Kithure Kindiki. On behalf of the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, so Chairman, we want to state that we have full confidence in the Commission and the returning officer of the presidential election. So Chairman, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have been represented here since 8 o'clock, and we've been updated that our team has raised most of the issues that we wanted to raise. I only require, now that the presidential candidate here is in person on his behalf, you allow us 3 minutes, which I will share 2, and one member will share 1, and we'll finalize our submission. The Chairman, we will be writing to you formally later today. I hear our counterparts, our competitors have also written to you, the Azimio group. We'll also be writing to you later today on a number of technical issues and operational issues which we think need to be addressed urgently. The one thing that we will request in that letter is an urgent response, because we only have 4 or 5 weeks left and we need to be ready. Among the issues, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of the KPMG audit of the register. The gaps that were identified, we want to know them in the spirit of the transparency of the electoral process, both before, during, and after. We would like to know what those gaps were and whether they have been addressed satisfactorily, because that is very critical. Secondly, if we could even have a copy of that report, because I think they are auditing a public process. It should not be a secret. It should be available even to the media, so that we know what gaps exist, when they will be addressed, and so forth and so on. Number 2, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the loading of the data into the KIMS, I don't know at what point the agents of the various parties will be allowed to, at least, I know it's a huge process, transferring the manual register into the KIMS and loading the KIMS is a very huge and burdensome process. But the agents of the candidates can be allowed to at least sample or have access to that process, again, just for assurances that everything is okay, so that we are sure whatever is loaded electronically is consistent with what would be available manually. Thirdly, the visit to the printer, I think also should be, of course it's our business to organize, but we need facilitation from your side in terms of timelines, so that we also arrange for visas and tickets for our team who wants to go and see and visit the plant, and maybe synchronize with our competitors, so that we again don't bog on the commission with a separate visit. Thirdly, we are a bit dissatisfied with the response the commission has given on the issue of geofencing of the KIMS kids. Extremely dissatisfied. We raised it in our letter. We'll say why. Because the fact that you have said this KIMS kit, serial number this, is assigned to a polling center this, is not enough. Because the transmission of results can take place in a nearby forest and still within the same location. So there is need for the place where that transmission will take place to be controlled to the best possible location in terms of georeferences. Finally, we have a general issue on compliance by the players in the presidential campaign with the electoral code of conduct, which every candidate signed. We've seen incidents of inter-party violence and intra-party violence. We have had an incident in Jacaranda where our rally was disrupted violently. We have also seen our competitors the issues in Marsabit among themselves, in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Mandera. It's worrying. Our view is that although the commission does not have prosecution powers, because we saw your statement, but I'm sure there is something you can do, including warnings or whatever other method you can use to enforce that code of conduct so that the election is peaceful. I will donate 1 minute to Moses Kuria, a member of the team. And half a minute for you, and we won't have a... And we were also that our friends spoke a lot. So there is need for balance of airtime. 1 minute for Moses Kuria, 1 minute for Veronica Maina.
I just do the minute, please. We need to move on to the next issue.
Thank you. I am concerned about the issue of agents. Because Professor Guri has said that their primary concern is to protect the commission staff, which is rightly so. But our primary commitment is to protect our agents. Elections are not stolen. Elections are lost by agents. So therefore, my concern is from previous experiences of the last elections. The issue of turning away agents on polling day. So the agents turn up, or you don't have original.
We already discussed that issue. It was raised in the morning. I think your team were here.
Please, allow me to avoid repetition. Please, at the risk of annoyance. So this agent stands up at the polling center. They are told you don't have original oath of secrecy. You don't have original agent accreditation form. You don't have the badge. My question is it possible that you can have a pre-verification on a day before, maybe for the oath of secrecy and the agent form, so that the only thing that's retained by the commission, by the returning officer, is a badge? In 2017, in Kitui County, the Jubilee Party had most of the agents turned away, up to 2. I'm not saying Professor Makamoto had anything to do with it, but up to 2 o'clock, Jubilee agents could not access, and have been involved in a number of by-elections after that. And this is Professor Kuri has said that we want to minimize the issue of photo taking in the polling center, and rightly so. But what happens is that returning officers and presiding officers curtail excessively communication, so that even if there is a problem, we don't get to know about it. And I'll give an example of the Msabweni by-election, where we had serious problems communicating with the agents on the ground, because the returning officer becomes a power by presiding officer, a power by themselves. You cannot make the phone call, you cannot do this. Why are they agents? How will we know when something goes wrong if presiding officers develop their own rules on the ground? Finally, on the issue of mass transfers, we are dissatisfied with the vague answer that was given about the 3 officers and the action being taken. Reason being that one of the cabinet secretaries had said publicly to one of the presidential candidates that they know their work and they are doing their work. Could this cabinet secretary be one of the 3 people under investigation? Thank you.
I think for my 1 minute, Chairman, I think we have spoken a lot and we have given our views as the UDA Kenya Kwanza Coalition. But there is one question that we need clarity from your end as the presidential returning officer. Which form exactly are you going to be using for tallying the presidential result? We have the form 34A and we have the form 34B. And supposing the form 34B has an error and is not indicative of what happened at the polling center, the form 34A, which forms are you going to tally the presidential vote? If you can clarify that, that is important. Assume in a worst case scenario that form 34B has an error. It has not captured exactly what was captured at the tallying center, at the polling center. Will the parties have an opportunity, now that we would have taken photographic image of the form 34A, will we have an opportunity to relay information to you, so that if during the transmission there is a problem with what is being transmitted, it's exactly different from what was the real form from form 34A. What is the commission going to do? Without overemphasizing what has been raised by Professor Kindiki on the electoral code of conduct that was signed by all candidates. Chairman, we did a letter to you complaining about Jacaranda. You did respond to us, but through the media. Our concern is this. Candidates are tweeting and saying they are the ones who are in control of certain kiosks that have been meted out in places like Jacaranda. Why wouldn't the commission take action against such candidates, including suspending or expelling them or removing them completely from the race? That is the only way you can send a message we still don't have a satisfactory answer from your end. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me say a few things. And I'm happy you say you put some of these things in writing, so we shall adequately respond. You wanted to make closing remarks? I heard you several times. Yeah, please make it brief.
Yes. My running mate will give our closing remarks, please, because we work as a team. And I would like to from in front there. The camera isn't getting the right shot.
Please keep to the.
Yes, we will keep the 2 minutes. We'll give from here. We don't know. We don't know why we had to be pushed to that corner, but it doesn't matter.
Keep to the agenda of the meeting. Yes. Keep to the agenda of today's meeting. Yes. The politics will be. I wrote to you for this meeting. I itemized the issues. Please. Yes. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, the commissioners, our competitors, and everyone else. Ours is a closing remark that is brief. The IBC, we thank the IBC for inviting us. Allow me to read. The IBC, we thank you for inviting us for this meeting. It has been very useful. I reiterate our earlier position that the support for electronic voter registration, we are for that as option A and option B. In our manifesto to be launched in the next few days, we support, and we still insist we are supporting, the ICT technology. I am in it, and I know it is possible to have credible elections dependent on ICT. IBC, Mr. Chair, you have done a good job, and anything that borders intimidation, don't allow it. The ground has changed. Kenyans are depending on you. Do what is right. We know that your job is not easy. During the nomination, we learned that some of your staff did not sleep for 3 days. Going to the 9th, 2022, you might even go for a week or so without sleep. You have our prayers, and because we shall be praying for you, you shall overcome. For Kenyans, please keep peace and more peace. Elections come and go. Don't fight. Our request is to vote and change leaders. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, voting that is outside your agenda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can add you another minute. Okay. I believe those are closing remarks.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize for coming late. It was not intentional. You're aware, we had gotten an earlier communication that this meeting would start at 11. And unfortunately, our Secretary General called us last night that there was a change of time, and we had already scheduled a meeting, so I apologize for that. But having said that, I would request that in future, we should at least give us maybe 3-4 days notice of the actual timings, because you understand, Mr. Chairman, every minute counts when you are a few days to the election. Secondly, we have participated in elections. This is not different from all the other elections we participated in.
We believe that the IEBC has built sufficient capacity to handle this election. All we want, Mr. Chairman, is what you're doing. Engagement, continuous engagement. We will continuously engage you, engage your technical team with our technical team. And sometimes when we criticize, it's not because we have any issues. It's because we put the right thing. I was once told by Muite that when you support a government, you criticize it when it goes wrong. So sometimes when you see criticism, I think in that spirit. Two final things. Thank you very much. Two final things. We all agree that we are the digital highway is the place we are going. We support your commitment to the electronic register. We are trying to move our parties to also have nominations, like our competitors using an electronic register. So I think that's the direction we want to go. There has been notions that are not correct, that Kenya Kwanza wants a manual register. We do not want a manual register. If you give us sufficient safeguards that an electronic register will function without any chance of failure, then we are good. And finally, I was amazed at the number of staff, permanent staff, IEBC have. 800, in the region of 800 plus. Mr. Chairman, that's a very huge resource which Kenyans pay for. You should consider in future deploying that resource to help us with the nominations in parties. I think really there should be a consideration because it's a national resource and they shouldn't be waiting to just run the elections. They can also help us run nominations in our parties with the expertise they have. In any case, Mr. Chairman, a democratic election will be heavily informed by the kind of nominations we do. If the nominations are not democratic, you end up with elections that are not democratic. So I think going forward, you should consider as IEBC working with political parties so that we can leverage more on the resource you have, which is a public resource, to assist grow political parties as institutions of governance. That because I believe that the strength of a democracy is dependent on the strength of the democratic institutions, including political parties. We have no problem with any Kenyan serving in any capacity, so long as they have been recruited competitively and they have the requisite skills and competences. We have absolutely no preference for any Kenyan from any community. And if our competitors have a problem with certain Kenyans who come from certain communities, you can work out with them. We have no problem if they are replaced. But we want every Kenyan to be given a chance, and the measure should not be ethnicity, the measure should be competence, whether they are competent to do whatever it is that they are doing. I am on record, Mr. Chairman, saying that even if my competitor's brother was the chairman of IEBC, I would have no problem, so long as he is competitively recruited. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I'm sure that the president has been vaccinated, so there's no risk. Let me say, Mr. Chairman, that we, as I said earlier, we appreciate very much you and the Commission and your staff for making yourself available to us, to our competitors, to have this dialogue. I think of the political parties represented here, I can say that we in Azimio are the ones who have had historical grudges with the electoral body. Previous to yourselves, there was the ECK. We had issues with them. I know that it's no secret. You know we've had issues with this commission before. The courts have adjudicated that matter. But I want to say that we hope and trust that this time around that things will be different. That's why we are here, to communicate with you, to dialogue with you, to fellowship together so that we can have this election be a credible election that Kenyans can accept and the world can celebrate. We have raised many issues, Mr. Chairman, and I think we've been in constant dialogue with each other over the past few months. We've written letters to you. We just want to make one entreaty to you and the Commission that when we write letters, would you please respond to us as quickly as possible, or at least communicate with us so that we can know when to expect a response. I just want to say that the issues that have been raised by my colleague here, Mr. Saitabao, about the ethnic imbalance in the Commission, these are not, light issues that should be taken lightly. I think you'll be providing, evidence of the questions he's raising. I hear what the Deputy President is saying, that he has no issue with Kenyans, and of course we do not have issues with Kenyans. But I think that the principle of inclusivity requires, as our Constitution dictates, that public bodies be representative, that they represent the people of Kenya and represent the face of Kenya. I think we've seen some discrepancies. I agree again with the Deputy President that merit is important, but our Constitution also dictates that we look at other vectors of identity, such as region, such as gender, such as disability. All these factors are important when we are constituting a public body like this one. So I think we shall be giving you the information that we have, and we hope to dialogue with you. We do not want to assume bad faith until we get your answers. The Russians say trust but verify. So we are trusting first, but then we'll verify after we get your responses. So, Mr. Chairman, we are grateful to you and the Commission, and we look forward to a free and fair election. Thank you so much.
Roots Party, you have... Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Brano Cage. I'm the head of campaign secretariat for Roots Party, headed by Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya. Chairman, you may have noticed that we have donated a lot of our time to Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. It's because we really appreciate and understand the sensitivity and the magnitude of the work that you do. And most of the time as politicians and political parties, we do not really take time to appreciate the kind of work that you're doing. So we continue to express our confidence in the work that you're doing. We'll continue to support the commission where we are needed. And we are appreciating so much that you continue to engage us. And we hope that this will continue all the way to the general elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand. I've been sitting for too long. You have asked a lot of questions. The media. Now, let me deal with the questions, then I'll see. Allow the media before I finalize. Oh, you want? Thank you. So in closing, I'll start off by saying that a number of issues which have been asked by stakeholders. It's not audible. Are we okay now? No? Never mind. Are we okay? Yeah, thank you. A number of questions will be answered by the technical team next week. Marijan will convene that meeting. We invite two from each of the presidential candidates to deal with the technical issues. One of them being visitation to our factory where we are preparing the team's kits. And a lot of questions then will be answered when we do the visitation, how the process is ongoing, how the SD cards will be loaded. There's a whole team working on that. The issue of the register will be, of course, addressed. The register will be shared with the stakeholders and broken down up to the polling stations. You'll have that information so that you can also prepare for the big day. Visitation to the ballot paper factory, I think dates will be given when the team is going. Fortunately, IBC does not have a budget to finance the stakeholders, so we shall ask you to look into your kitty, but the dates and arrangements will be made for purpose of visa arrangements and travels, and of course, welcome to the other side. So issues around geofencing, the technical team will give you more information, anything to do with the KIMS kits, and other questions that you are planning to be informed. I only want to comment on two issues. Of course, our presiding officers work under regulations, and the entire IBC team works under the election regulations. So they don't make laws on the ground as they stand. We work under a legal framework. I just want to comment on two issues. One, the result is from that 4A. That's the result we are going to use. That's the result the National Returning Officer will be tabulating to ensure that whatever is in that 4B corresponds with that 4A. The result at polling station is final and cannot be changed. If there are errors, we shall note the errors. We have created an error form, and that form then will be shared with the court. If there's any petition in the Supreme Court, the results will be submitted together with the error forms. What we are saying this time round is, candidates, please have your agents at polling stations. Agents get copies of the results, and you can then share with whoever is managing the candidates. And when we meet at Bomas or at the National Tallying Center, let us then compare notes. The commission will have the results. If you have any issue with the end of the results, point it out. The agents will have, the commission will have, the media will be having those results, so that we move this process smoothly. And the commission has result forms, will be printed. Our result forms also have security features. So don't bring us any form. We it's a serialized, it's printed. We shall only look at the forms which we know are genuine forms. So don't bring us a form which doesn't belong to the commission. So together, if we work together, I think we shall then deliver a believable, as Professor Macau says, we say trust. I think we shall have reached that level beyond that aspect of any doubt. Code of conduct, candidates, political parties, you signed the code of conduct. In 2017, the Commission enforced the code of conduct to the fullest. We had 71 cases. We heavily fined individuals who breached the code of conduct. We disqualified 2 of them from participating in elections when they failed to pay the fines. This time round, we gazetted the election date on 20th January and commenced then the code of conduct, but one of the individuals went to court, and the court made a judgment that the Commission's Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee is unconstitutional. Now, that then took away all the teeth the Commission has to bite on any misbehavior as a result of the Code of Conduct. The Commission's Code of Conduct Committee arises from the Constitution, Article 884, provides that the Commission shall come up with a Code of Conduct. So here we were being told that it's unconstitutional, yet it's a creature of the Constitution. So we filed an appeal in the Court of Appeal, which came up for hearing yesterday, and the Court of Appeal has set a judgment for the 4th of November. We all know 4th of November we shall be done with the elections. Now, what are we left with? We are told we cannot summon those candidates who are breaching the code of conduct, or political parties, or all the people bound by the code. We don't have, then the court has taken away from us the powers to issue summons. And so what we are left with is, if you write to us, you have issues about the campaigns out there, all we do is forward your details, our complaint to the DPP. That's what we are left with. And we're also left with preaching peace and telling new candidates, please campaign peacefully out there because this is our country. Don't be violent because we all care about this nation. So that is where we are as far as the code of conduct is concerned. But we shall continue engaging. We shall impress upon the DPP to prosecute. We shall issue press statements as and when events unfold, and call upon you to campaign peacefully. But we don't have the powers to summon you because they have been taken away from us by the court. You are in competition. You are not enemies. And so far, as I said, I'm happy that the candidates, the presidential candidates have behaved well, except a few incidents we have witnessed. Please avoid those incidents of violence. Our team is here. Please leave your technical team behind as we go to harmonize the campaign schedules that may be clashing. We don't want any clashes of campaign schedules. We can agree. This is our country, and whatever examples you set is what the Kenyan voter down there will have to follow. So mine is just to thank you for coming. This is the beginning of other meetings we may have. For those of you who are not here, I've invited you for the national conference on the 11th and 12th of July, where all the will be given some minutes to make remarks. We expect 500 Kenyans to attend the national conference, and there will be also some international speakers. So thank you very much for coming. I'm told lunch is served, and we look forward to further engagements, and I also look forward with my team to give Kenyans a free, fair, and credible election. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. The presidential candidates and their delegates, including the IBC commissioners, will have lunch at Terrace. Okay.
My wife is called Ruse. Na ni mmoja tu, hakuna mwingine. Coincidentally, nilikuwa nimesimama kiti ya kansula wakati Kibaki alikuwa anasimama president. Na wakati alipata accident, na mimi hiyo wiki nikapata accident. And I was on wheelchair for 6 months.
To watch this story and more, download the Citizen Digital app today.
Kenya's #1 app, Citizen Digital.
Modo Particular is back. Na ashokete na muthako wa ngerekano karugamo ka jamba. Yes! Tariki igere mweri wa mugwanja. Ukatutheke hamwe haria Das Bayan, Kiambu Road, hau 4-way junction, haria tene haretagwo Kegwa. Kuingira mwago uyu no ngirie mwetu, utheke nginya ukahuke Inooro tada. Muthako uyu ukajia thaa 2 cia utuku na ni wa andu agima. Na ningi, muthako uyu wandikitwo ni Ken wa Kuraya. Gura tigiti waku kugerera www.tikitiyangu.co.ke. Do kanatere.
We mwega jitagwo Paul Waiganjo. Hihi no menyete ati tiri noguo utonga uria ungitira guku ne Juja Farm, Kiambu County, kuria twina project njeru iretwo Vines Garden Phase 13. Varavara mae ona thitima ni guaranteed. Thogora ne ngiri 495 na no rihe na marihi makahora kahora o nginya mieri 6. Deposit ne ngiri 100. Ohoro makeria tuhurire thimo namba 0721077077 kana utosherere Jewel Complex Roysambu 2nd floor, Brico Homes Limited, a touch of fulfillment.
Kabuni ya Roiro Mabati Factory nĩ ĩmwe ya thondeki njũru a mabati ma kũgita nyũmba. Tũthondekaga mabati mĩthemba mĩingĩ na ma gĩkĩro kĩa igũrũ marĩa matũraga ihinda iraihu na magathakaria mũgitĩre wa nyũmba yaku makĩria. Mabati maya metagwo box profile, Europe tile, Jenga tile, corrugated S profile na mangĩ maingĩ na mokaga na marangi maingĩ ngũrani. Mabati maitũ nĩ metiragia mbura nene na riũa rĩhiũ na koguo makagĩrĩra nyũmba cia biacara na cia gũikarwo. Nĩguo gwetia oda yaku, tũcerere showroom-inĩ itũ mwena wa Roiro Town na no tũcerere rũrenda-inĩ rwitũ nĩruo www.roiromabati.co.ke kana ũkenerere ũtungata wa kũreherwo mabati maku harĩa ũrĩ gwa kahinda ka mathaa 72 tu. Roiro Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Aya, imotora muthia out hihi ciana ciao kamuria migunda ikigayo mwariku. Aya, warauga atia? Niki? Urauga atia? Ukende muonie kuria migunda itigarire kundu kwina raithi. Kilomita 2 kuma haria Kangundoro ndi guka ha mugunda-ini. Ni goko gugitagwo Dagmar Guruni Green Gardens. Aya, niki? Ndume hau na wena thitima. Ukaide muonie. Iga, igora. Mama, gotire kendo gotari. Thukuru nayo ndikire haha. Na maneighbor maya. Kuragia tiriri. Ni macucangite bei nginya 380 na deposit uraigira ciringi 50. Office cianyu ri? Office citu ri ci haria Roiro bypass, CNM center, first floor. Dagmar Land Investment. We promise, we deliver.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa.